Hey, what is going on, guys? Happy Sunday to you. Hope you're having a great weekend with you and your family, enjoying some movies as well as maybe music, just chilling out, relaxing, getting ready for the weekday. Welcome to the AV Experience Podcast. I'm excited, man. You guys excited?
Yeah.
I guess.
You can tell Ryan's excited.
It's Cedia time, and I'm just, it's exciting, but I'm already dreading the not sleeping.
Yeah. Cedia is going to be a long time, man. We've got, I fly out Wednesday morning, early morning, like 7 a.m.
I fly out tomorrow.
You fly out tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So well, yeah, that makes sense. You got to get there a couple days early.
Well, a lot of the guys for the booth have been there since yesterday.
Wow. Yeah, because they got to build the room, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's fun.
No, it's not.
not as fun as it sounds, right?
I think the room showed up on time this year, so that's a plus. Last year it was multiple days late, and it was not fun.
Yeah, that's stressful. I know I was talking to Evan, and he's stressing big time. He was supposed to have like 3 different drivers pick up these massive crates for Seymour Screens Excellence, and he's like, they're not here yet, man. We got to get this stuff over there. So it's always challenging, man, organizing that and all the logistics to make a show happen. And even though you're just responsible for one room and one booth, much less not having to worry about the whole show itself, but always something. But it'll be fun. Cool. Looks like Tim's gonna be there. He said he's excited to meet some of you guys at Cedia. Let me know if you're going to Cedia. Drop it in the chat.
Ryan, are you going there kind of in your vendor hat, or are you going just as a trade show person, like just a visitor, basically?
Vendor. I try and get away sometimes to be able to talk to other vendors and stuff, but the booth we run is just, you don't get any time. I mean, last year the wait time for our line was over 2 hours. So our booth is extraordinarily popular. We do it with Trinov. This year's with Ascendo, Officina Acustica, or Officina Acustica, Barco, Kaleidoscape, Mad VR, and it's kind of the booth. I mean, I'm not ashamed, or I won't hide that. It's kind of the booth at Cedia. It was the booth last year. It'll be the booth again this year for some things that we're doing. So it's just a lot of work and a lot of time. I'll be doing demos from when the show opens until it closes, and then we have to stay after and do private stuff. There's private vendor stuff, private meetings, and so it's nonstop from when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning till you go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's not a lot of sleeping if you get to go to sleep, depending on how the construction goes. Sometimes it's not a lot.
Well, if it makes you feel better, it probably won't. But the first night that I'm there, not the first night, I guess the second night, the first day of Cedia, I'll be up pretty late because I've got 2 videos I've got to get edited for the very next day.
Am I crackling and popping?
Yes.
I hear it. Yeah. I thought that's why I asked you earlier if it was on my end. So
let me restart some stuff. Was I doing that earlier?
Mm-hmm. That's why. That's
no. Why didn't you tell me before we went live?
I thought it was me. I asked Ryan. I said, "Hey," I said, "Is my audio okay?" He said, "Yeah, it's good," but I didn't think to say, "Well, yours is crackling." I thought it was my internet. I thought it was booty. Ryan, he likes your popcorn setting. Not sure what a popcorn setting is. Cool. While he's doing that, let me say hi to some folks in the chat. SRW1000, Tyler's in the house. Chris, good to see you, man. K-Man, John Raiders, Gene or Brian. What's up, buddy? JR. Nicholas is hanging out with us from Australia. Love that, man. Super cool. Mike's in the house. Uh-oh. Bruce, sorry to hear you're sick, man. Good wait. What? That's like a backhanded compliment, man. He's at home sick, so this is a good way to waste time.
Oh.
Hopefully we're not a waste of time for you, brother. I know what you mean. I hope you're getting feeling better. Good to see you. We'll throw this one up there. Any early leaks on possible big new JVC projector firmware updates? I don't have any news.
There's a firmware update fairly recently, but I think it does kind of minor stuff with HDMI compatibility type settings.
Yeah. Don't know. Yeah, I hadn't heard anything. Ryan pops back in. We'll ask him. Perfect Dark, good to see you. Aloha, Marv. Hey, Marv, honest question. My wife and I are looking at going to Hawaii next year. And it's weird, man. You watch on like TikTok and stuff, and some of the folks from Hawaii are like, we don't want people here like tourists. But then
is that any better?
Yeah, it sounds okay.
Well, I don't trust you, Jonathan.
No,
is it any better?
Like, it's not popping.
I don't hear popping right now.
Okay,
I'll let you know if I hear it.
all right.
So just total side kind of quest. But it's confusing. Like some of the residents are saying, "Hey, we don't want you here." Some of the residents are saying, "We need you here because even though we're hurting and even though it's a mess over here, we desperately need our economy to continue on." So it's just, and I don't think that's necessarily a political thing. There's just maybe differences of opinions. I don't know. I don't want to go there and people are like, dude, why is Youth Man here? But if we can help out the economy, that'd be great. But we've been wanting to go to Hawaii for many, many, many years. Wanted to do it on our 20th year, 25th year. Now we're at 26. So, but yeah, they always say they don't want to say, yeah, I don't know. So hopefully they do. But man, definitely praying for you guys because I know it's a mess over there right now. Michael needs a dedicated review theater. Dude, that'd be awesome. Maybe start me a GoFundMe and build me a shed out back that I can just review. Where he's coming from on that, I made a video today. I had a guy ask me, it's been a little while back, and he said, Michael, do you still enjoy home theater? Because, and get to enjoy your own home theater. And so I kind of shared my thoughts there. And overall, absolutely. I love what I do. I'm still passionate. That hadn't changed. What has changed is the amount of time I get to enjoy my theater room. Because even like right now, I've got the Arundel LCR up there in the front. And so I can't really use mine until I get that reviewed and out of the way, so I've got a Anthem AVM 70. I need to unhook my processor, put that one in, so there's so much changes in my room on a continual basis. So definitely makes it kind of challenging.
Every time I see Michael, he just complains about doing all of these streams and all of the tours and everything.
I love it, dude.
He's worse than me.
Your crackling's back. By the way.
No.
I did hear the crackling too. Yeah, it's because you got negative on us. If you would have stayed nice, your microphone would have been good. So
Still there?
I hadn't heard it now. Justin Manning, anyone ever hear Martin Logan? We'll get to questions later on. I just figured I'd hit a couple while
Still
you're figuring
there?
out.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Justin Manning, anyone ever hear the Martin Logan FX speakers? I'm about to pull the trigger for $400 for a pair. I think the FX, I reviewed those with the 60 XTI speakers. I think it was the FX. Let me see, Martin Logan FX. I think those are the surrounds, right? Yeah. Yeah. I reviewed, I don't remember which one it was. It might have been the FX2. So, I mean, they work well for a 5-point.
All right, I changed my mic, so it's my laptop mic until I can get that fixed.
That sounds horrible.
Should I go back to the other one? It's that bad?
Yeah. I literally hear
Niagara Falls is in the background.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, dude. That's either your toilet running or the air conditioner, or you got an air compressor going on to keep you cool in your room. I don't know.
I don't know why it's doing that. Why
Nope.
it's
Now it's good.
well, okay. I'm gonna be positive, and then it'll be happy. I hope.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I figured we'd just go ahead and get a couple questions out of the way while you're doing that. All right, cool. Let me hit this super chat real quick, and then Ryan has a topic we'll kick off.
Well, did we answer this question from Manny?
I did. Which one? Justin? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You were. I told him I had heard him. Oh, put it back up there. I just clicked off of it. It just changed. Justin, where'd you go, buddy? Where'd the question go? You see it?
Nope. I remember what it was. He was asking if the FX for $400 were good.
Yes. And I told him I had reviewed. I don't remember if they were the FX or if it was the FX version 2. but they worked well. I had in like a 5.2. Here it is. Had like a 5.2 system. So you probably heard the FX series, right?
Yes. They're decent speakers. Depends on what he's trying to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
So if the speaker's going to be close to you, the FX or the FX2 is a good solution. If the speaker's just going to be a traditional surround, don't do an FX or an FX2. You want to do a monopole.
Like a bookshelf.
Yeah, you don't want
Yeah,
to
mine they were only like 6 foot for me. My room isn't real big, so they worked
well,
out
even then, I'd probably just use a traditional bookshelf. I mean, those speakers are designed to be like right on top of you within a few feet. If they're outside of that, you're going to want to use a normal bookshelf speaker or something like that. It's going to be a better experience.
Cool. All right, so we will get your question. Let me hit this super chat. Living it with Scott and Kat podcast. What is up, brother? So I had a chance to visit Scott and Kat, and they do an annual event, and so they are going to be doing a podcast, man. See, that's a nice way to get your little plug in there, man. So coffee's on us. Appreciate it, man. Hanging out here for a bit tonight. So I'm excited for them. They're Scott and Kat are going to be doing a podcast on their YouTube channel, so you can check that out. Living it with Scott and Kat. And what's the date on that? That is on the 27th of this month, the first day. So he's ordered microphones. He's got some lighting and some. Looking forward to it. They're going to talk about just a lot of different things, audio, their travels, all different types of stuff. I think it'll be pretty fun. So looking forward to it, brother. Appreciate the coffee and the love and support as always, man. And Kat too, as well. All right. So if you got questions, definitely drop those in the chat. We'll answer those after we get through Ryan's question of the night. So if you got them, just drop them down there. If you got a super chat, that's great. We'll hit that. But definitely not required. So just definitely appreciate all the support. So Ryan, what's our topic for tonight, man?
So I just wanted to talk about, because we talked about last time about gain structure and how important setting your gains appropriately can be. But I kind of think something that may be even more important than that, or equally as important, is timing.
Okay.
So getting your timing correct, your delays, your impulse, all of that stuff correct, I think can make or break a theater. If you don't get your timing correct, you're leaving a lot on the table. And it can feel daunting in order to get it set up correctly, because you do need some tools in order to get it right. I mean, if you're doing like an AVR, you can set up distances, you can measure, because the AVR is your amplifier, right? As long as your speaker runs aren't like 100 feet different, it should be pretty close just doing a measurement as far as a distance measurement. But I think what a lot of people forget is that when you do, like, let's say you're doing an AVR and you're doing pre-outs going into an amplifier, your distances or your delays can be different. Like the delay that the amplifier is probably going to bring in may or may not be substantial. So it's important, in my eyes, to measure it acoustically and not just using a physical distance. Because if you do a physical distance, you're not accounting for all of the variables that can be and probably are in place in your theater. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. The simplest way, now that Jonathan got me on this year is Omnimic. I say simple, it's behind a $300 paywall, and I think we're still waiting for version 3. But the Omnimic allows you to do a real-time measurement of impulse, just part of how the Omnimic software is laid out, and it's super simple to be able to do. REW allows you to do something very similar. I don't think theirs is real-time. Jonathan, do you know if they've added real-time?
They say they've added a real-time feature, but I don't think it's, when I've seen it experience, it's not quite as smooth as Omnimic's.
Omnimic's is just super easy. And again, I just don't think people give it enough thought for their delays. And I also think a lot of AVR companies and pre-pro companies don't give us enough granularity in order to really dial in the time alignments like I think we need to. Because I think we need more granularity than they allow us to have. I mean, we noticed at my house with the Martin Logans that you notice down to the 100th of a millisecond. You can hear it shifting. And if it's off, you're shifting your image. And it's off by 100th of a millisecond. And people can close their eyes. It was people that had never done it before. And they could point and hear, we were using Adele, and you could hear her shifting. And it was super interesting to be able to see people do that. But if you look at like Marantz or Denon, I think they just allow you to go down.
It's 0.1 feet.
To the 10th. Is that to the 10th?
Yes.
I think that's to the 10th of a millisecond, which is great. It's much better than a millisecond, which is what it actually, I think, used to be. But it's still, in my opinion, not granular enough given what we can hear just using our ears and how that can affect imaging and all kinds of other stuff. So I think that's really, really important. And the biggest thing that I think it can make a difference on, getting outside of the 100th, I think it's maybe doesn't have to be as accurate, though it does help, is your sub-alignments. Because if the waves are arriving at different times, and this happens with speakers too, but I think it's just not as noticeable because it impacts more imagery than it does just feeling like flat bass. The waves will arrive at misaligned times and they can actually cancel each other out. So if you don't have your alignment set appropriately, you're actually having your subs fight each other, which I don't think a lot of people realize. So you can gain a lot from your system that you already have just by checking your alignment. And I can almost guarantee that a lot of the people listening right now, their alignment's probably off in the room. And they're leaving a lot on the table. And that's not calling anybody out. I think it happens to everybody. I mean, it happened to me like not too long ago. I found out that my Nearfield was out by a couple milliseconds. So that I just got lazy and didn't switch it from when I was going from a sealed sub to the ported subs. I was going from a RS1 to a 4000 and I didn't change the alignment, and I should have. So it's really important that you guys check this, because if you don't, you're leaving a lot on the table. And this goes back to a lot of people have the tendency to upgrade gear instead of fixing what's already in place. So if you address things like the room, your alignment, making sure your gain structures and your gains are all correct, you're going to gain a lot, and a lot more than you will just by changing equipment. Because if you change equipment, those problems are probably still going to be there. So it's really important to remember, start with the fundamentals, start with the basics, and then make sure those are right before you start addressing other things. Because if you don't make sure the foundation is correct, how can you build on top of that?
Yeah, some people want to add, like you said, they want to add another subwoofer because they say, hey, I just don't get a lot of that, that kick, that punch. I'm not feeling it. And so they'll buy another subwoofer. And sometimes that'll fix it because now you're changing the room modes and how those kind of interact with each other. But sometimes it'll make it even worse because, again, you're still not addressing the timing issue. They're all hitting you at different times, and that can be detrimental. So what about like Odyssey? Bruce says, does Odyssey do bad timing adjustment?
No, I don't know. What do you think, Jonathan? You have more experience with Odyssey than any of us here.
I think it's going to be, I find it good enough for myself, for my ear. When we were doing that test at your house with the Adele track that you're talking about, I think it was Sheldon who could hear down to the 100th of a millisecond. I don't think that I could really determine that granular, that small of a distance. I just did a math check on it because I didn't remember the number off the top of my head. But you're right that basically a tenth of a foot is about a tenth of a millisecond. So when you're talking 100th of a millisecond, there's 10 of those slots in that Odyssey's.
You're down to the inch.
Yeah, I mean, so Odyssey has basically got one step for every 10 steps that Ryan was doing testing with. I could tell the difference. Adele would move for me, as I recall, like 3, 4, 5 millisecond difference. As far as like me hearing a.
Well, you're talking 500ths of a millisecond, not 3, 4, 5 milliseconds.
Yeah,
I would hope she would move at that point.
You're correct. I stand corrected. So 3, 4, 5 hundredths of a millisecond type time frame, I could hear Adele's image clearly shift, not like Phantom. I'm not sure if this is really happening, but clearly shift. Odyssey's doing a tenth. So they're a little bit more granular than maybe you'd prefer. But in real life, like I've used Odyssey for a lot of years, and I think it does pretty well. You can maybe improve on a little bit if you want to go to like a MiniDSP or something like that, but you can get most of the way there with Odyssey. Let's say that.
Would you say that room correction can also, though it can do a really good job, it can also get it wrong sometimes?
Oh yeah, it can.
So
especially I've noticed with like subwoofer crossover frequencies and so forth. There's been many times where I've run Odyssey and it'll set the subwoofer crossover frequency at whatever. And I'll run my Omnimic real-time analysis sweeps and I'll just switch the crossover 10 hertz, 20 hertz, something like that, and just watch the difference. And it'll go from like a phase issue at the subwoofer crossover frequency to a real smooth line by changing it 10 or 20 hertz. Wow. When you're changing phase, you are actually changing timing. I mean, that's doing the same sort of thing. You're changing the delay. But it's like just if you're watching it with the real-time analysis, you can see like, wait, this is way better if I raise the crossover frequency 20 hertz. So I'm going to raise it 20 hertz. You know, it's like super easy to see. And you don't have to have any degree in this. You don't even have to understand it. You know, if straight line is good and the frequency is drawing every like second. And so as you make those changes, you're watching what the straight line or not straight line is doing. We've said it before on here, and I still stand by it. It's the simplest way to learn a lot in a short while on this hobby is just watching how sound interacts in your room and watching that stuff in real time.
If you had to pick between frequency response and timing, which one would you pick?
That gets a little tough. For speakers, it would be impulse response. But for subwoofers, you could argue either way because you could be in a null and you're never going to fix it if you've got some sort of boundary interaction or so forth. I told this story before on the podcast. This guy was telling me he had no kick in his subwoofers at all. And he had JTR subwoofers, like very capable subwoofers. We get out my mic. I go over to his house. He's one of the new guys on the forums. We get out my mic. He happens to be sitting in some sort of knoll that I could move the mic 3 foot forward, 2 foot forward, 1 foot forward and back, 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. It was like better in any position except for where he just happenstance had his couch. So without changing anything else, we moved his couch forward a foot or two. And he's like, yeah, there it is. That's what I was missing. Well, you can't boost your way out of a null in the room. No matter what you do, you can apply all kinds of EQ. Odyssey can't fix it. You can't fix it. You got to either move the subwoofer or you got to move the seating position if your boundary interactions are like that. So it's a double-edged knife there. You know, it's hard to pick which one's worse in that regard. So Youthman, I see you put the V2 in there. I think it's out of stock. And I think supposedly this month they're coming out with the V3 system.
Hopefully.
Let me see if I click buy now.
Are they for sale now?
No, they had a buy. I assumed it was. You click the buy now, and then it says currently unavailable.
Yeah, I called and asked if they were discontinuing or whatever. They said, no, the V3 is coming out.
Nice. Okay. So keep an eye on it, but that's where you can find it. It looks like Parts Express sells that. So from Dayton Audio.
Yes.
So is Parts Express kind of like the distributor, maybe, in a way?
So Bill Waslow is the guy who created behind that, and he's like he's on AVS forum. So I think he partnered with Parts Express, and then Dayton Audio is kind of the creator behind it or the manufacturer behind it. Parts Express is the front end.
Their software is like really, really easy to use, right?
It's super intuitive. Yeah. And the instructions are nice. There's like a help window that can guide you through everything. You put a CD or a flash drive into your computer or your AVR or whatever else, and you just play the track. Like you pull up the graph and it says play track 2 with this graph, and so then you know it's just super intuitive.
And those are what, roughly $300
bucks.
Do we know what the V3 is going to run?
No, but the V1 and V2 are both 300, so I would assume that ballpark. Maybe it goes up a little bit. I don't know.
320, 315.
Maybe
no idea.
Okay. When you get Jonathan warmed up, he gets going. I love it, man. These guys, man, they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. Cool. Any other thoughts on that? So definitely, I think it's one of those things that. All right, so here would be. That would be a great opportunity to me, at like if somebody would be willing to show that and to walk people through that, maybe in an M-Wave as a seminar. I think that'd be really cool. Some basic measurements. Here's how you do. Here's how you walk through. Here's what you're looking for. And if this happens, let's figure out how do we fix that timing.
It's pretty easy to showcase. I mean, you can feel the bass difference. You can hear the speaker difference, the imaging change, distortion change if it's really off. I mean, it's not hard to tell. Once you know it's there, you'll know it's there.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to share my screen to show you how that looks in Omnimic real quick. It won't take very long.
Do it, man. This is great.
Can you see my screen right now?
I'm going to make, let's see, can we make that even bigger?
I can make it bigger.
No, that didn't really help. I was trying to like just hide us.
Control plus.
Sometimes it'll zoom in, sometimes it won't.
Tell me when you got it. When I'm showing.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this is like an Omnimic frequency response graph, and I didn't prepare this or anything, but I was just going to show you where the impulse response is. So as you're taking these real-time sweeps, it's showing you this is a compression sweep testing. It looks like they're raising the SPL and just kind of watching how it goes as it climbs up. It looks like. But as you look at this bottom part of the graph, this is the impulse response.
Yep.
What you want to see, if you can see my mouse move, is you should have a single up and a single down, and then it should return to a straight line.
Yep.
Right.
And that means that you're in perfect timing. And this is changing like every second. So you can go into your left channel or your right channel, and you can tick up or down your measurements in your MiniDSP or your AVR on your distances.
Okay.
And you're just trying to get that single up, down, right. And if you're off, like say you put an extra 3 foot in there just to like show what it looks like when it's torched.
Sure.
It would be like up, down, straight. You would have 2 distinct peaks. Okay. And that's bad, right? You want to make it a single one. That means the sound is getting there at the same time.
Well,
so
when
that's
it's
what
really
Ryan's
bad, you can see up, down, flat, up, down, flat. And sometimes it is that bad. It just depends. But the importance of this is you find and you effectively assign, this is my master speaker, and you align everything to that, right? So it's important that you get your alignments correct.
So this would be an example of a bad one, although I've seen much worse. But you can see there's 2 peaks here. It's almost like one of these is quieter than the other, and even a third one or something here. But usually, if you have the same SPL trim on the left and right, you'll see 2 distinct things if they're not matched up.
Mm-hmm.
Usually what it looks like, though, if you go back up a little bit more, is that one peak just looks like a mess. There's not one defined up and down. It just is kind of more of a squiggle, if you will, and that's because they're not aligned. Yeah, more like that.
Oh yeah, see that?
They're not aligned properly.
Yeah. And again, this is where I always go, and I'm not the measurement guy by any means, but I believe in measurements because we're trying to, like, if you're trying to figure out this timing stuff on your own without taking measurements, you're completely guessing. And every room is completely different. My room's going to be different. Jonathan's room is going to be different. Ryan's room is going to be different. Your room is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Unless you're actually measuring it and physically seeing what's happening in your alignment, in your timing, like I said, you're just completely guessing. And you may be throwing money at something that you don't need to throw money at. You just need to adjust your settings to get the best performance out of that subwoofer or out of those speakers. I think Ryan needs to adjust the timing on his microphone.
Is it bad again?
It comes and goes, man.
No, it sounds right. It's good right now.
It's good for the next 10 seconds. Then it's only when you start talking.
So, somebody in the chat said you should hook up your Omnimic and use that instead of whatever you're using.
I think it's the microphone port that I have plugged into my docking station, or the USB port.
So does REW show impulse response? I'm assuming it does.
Yes. It's just not as intuitive as Omnimic.
Okay. So if you have REW and a calibrated microphone, then you can
absolutely
look at it. Okay, cool. Trying to see if there are any other questions while we're on that. Let's see. Bruce says, does time alignment do a good job if you have to sit a little off center in the room? For example, if your right speaker's on a wall 6 foot from you and the left are a little bit further, maybe 6.5 from you, is that still going to work?
It's for one position. So Bruce's question is, you're tailoring it for your main listening position, and it's never going to be exactly right on the other ones. It can't be, because you're dialing it into like the inch basically, and obviously you're not at that same detail level when you're in the left or right seat or back row or anything.
But I think he's saying if you don't sit dead center of those 2 speakers, can you still time align them to your ears?
Oh.
If your couch is offset, I think is what he's asking.
Sure.
Yeah. It's all about the time it takes the sound to arrive at your main listening position. And if it's not synchronized, it's not going to sound correct.
Yeah. Cool. So Dan, I run 2 subwoofers. So it's the RS2s from JTR. So I think Ryan has 15 and Jonathan has 8. Something like that, right, Ryan?
So it sounds like my mic is clipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ah. Go back and rewatch that gain structure video, Ryan.
Oh, dang. Shots fired, man. Let's see. So again, I'm trying to clump all these together that have questions.
Turn myself down a little bit.
So Herc says, when using the step or impulse overlay in RAW to align mains to subs, what exactly are you trying to align? The first peak in the measurement past the 0 reference?
I haven't used RAW for impulse response, so I can't really answer that one.
Okay.
I was just Googling it real quick to see what it looked like in comparison, and it looks different than Omnimic, so I'm not very familiar with it.
And Nicholas says the Anthem ARC mic is an Omnimic, right? Probably different, right?
No.
That's totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, but are they using a U mic perhaps on the Anthem? Let me look that up.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's their own like proprietary microphone, I think. I reviewed one probably 3 or 4 years ago. MRX 1140. Yeah, Herc says, I guess I need an Omni mic. Anthem is their own proprietary mic, he says. Yeah, Omni mic is the program. So I guess there's some question there. So Nicholas is confused. Is Omni mic the microphone? Is it the software? Is it kind of like a combination of both? You get the software when you buy the...
Correct.
Yeah. So with something like the UMic 1, you buy that by itself from MiniDSP, but there's a free software called REW that you download. With the Omni mic, that's their software that they have designed to work with their microphone. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Yeah. So when you buy an Omni mic, you get a little like plastic case.
Hang on a second.
And you get a calibrated microphone, and that's gonna be hard to show up, but it says Omnimic V2 on it. It looks kind of like a U mic. See if the tip doesn't have that kind of like castle terrace edge on it. It's just a straight tip. And then it comes with a USB and a little mic stand and a couple discs. So that's your package. You got a track disc and you got a software disc. And then you play your track disc and your Blu-ray player. There's no wires to hook up at all. You just plug this into your PC and off to the races. I can be measuring in 20 seconds after going to someone's room by handing them the CD, or it's actually a DVD.
Too.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty convenient.
Let's see. He says he's got...
So we've mentioned this before, and when I say that it's fast, the reason I say that is because in most calibration systems, especially like the open source stuff like REW products, you have to do a little loop back, and you have to connect in a wire to your AVR. Yep. And a lot of times if I go over to someone's house, I've measured dozens of rooms with Omnimic because I just hand them a disc when I walk in. That's all they need.
Right.
If I go in there and I say, hey, I got to go back to the back of your receiver and I got to unhook a few things and plug a few things in, somebody's going to be like, no, I don't want you back there.
Yeah. That's why we hook them up to the front. If they have
it. Yeah. So it's been nice. I've done multiple crawls where people that are in the hobby pretty deep but haven't got a measurement mic, I'll say, hey, do you want a frequency response catch for your room? And they're like, yeah, sure. I've never seen that before. I hand them a disc, measure it, print it off. This is what your room looks like, man. This is where you can improve. You're getting a little low frequency or a little high frequency here. Here's how we can make some improvements. So that's all pretty cool.
Now, Jonathan, did you say that they have the software to download?
Yes, you can get it online. But
okay.
But it only works with that mic, so it's
correct. I'm just thinking like it might be easier. Let's say somebody had a Plex server and they put those in their little playlist for calibration. Then they wouldn't have to pull the disc out every time. Okay.
Oh yeah, you can be MP3s or WAV files or whatever you choose on that way.
I like it.
That's how I do it.
Be investing in one. So I did link it in the chat. Jonathan said that they're on version 2 right now, but they're coming out with a version 3. So they've kind of discontinued version 2. So hopefully in the next, I don't know, near future, they'll have that available for V3. It runs about is it 300?
We think around $300. That's historic.
And you have to use the Omnimic with the Omnimic software. It's not an open source platform. It's a closed system.
Makes sense. Well, you can't get the software without the mic, I would imagine, right?
You can. The software is free. You can download it, but it just won't work with external mic.
Makes sense because it's calibrated with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Now, Jed says impulse response is probably not the best process to align speakers and subs because of the time it takes for a bass wave to develop. What are your thoughts on that?
Jed, maybe shed a little bit more information on that, but I don't really think so. I've used that impulse response to let me rephrase. Frequency response might be my preference. So maybe I agree with you there if you're talking about frequency response to measure, because you can figure out phase with your speakers super easily by here's your line, here's where your subs interact. If you increase or decrease this distance, you should be able to watch that interaction, especially between subs. The frequency response will raise as you draw the phases closer together, the distances closer together. Your subwoofer level, the overall SPL, the frequency response will raise collectively because they will become more uniform. And if your phase is out of alignment, they'll fight each other and cause cancellation, and the frequency response will generally go down. So maybe if that's where your head's at, that you'd prefer frequency response there. But the impulse response is pretty good too. Like it has its own merit.
Okay.
But yeah, speak up in the chat and give us a little bit more information what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we addressed this, JR. So you can't use the UMic 1 with the Omnimic software. You need their microphone. Just looking to see if anybody else had any questions on that before we move on.
Don't see any more.
Okay. No far work. Okay, perfect. All right, guys. If you got other questions, home theater related, drop them in the chat. So I'm going to scroll all the way back up here and we'll start. Ryan will keep tagging these and we'll jump on it. So 255 says Outlaw Audio or Emotiva amps best bang for the buck.
Both are good.
Haven't looked at their pricing as far as Outlaw. Yeah, I've heard good things. I haven't reviewed any.
I'd spend a little bit more and get Buckeye.
Outlaw's been around a long time, and they've got a good following on AVS for them. A lot of people like them. They've been reliable amplifiers.
Yeah.
Emotiva, I think, is the same way. I don't think I could recommend an Emotiva processor, but I could recommend an Emotiva amp.
Yeah.
How much is their 3-channel amp?
I'm looking at 7 channels, 1,000. They have a 5-channel for $770.
I would just spend a little bit more and get Buckeye. I mean,
so 2-channel. Yeah, 2 channels run about $400.
You can get a 2-channel HypeX for $575, which I think is going to be a much better amplifier.
It's $175. This is 200 by 2.
So this one's 252 by 2.
Okay, it's a little bit more power. Yeah, I mean, I'm with Jonathan. I wouldn't have any problems recommending either one of them. You know, Ryan's used the Buckeyes for quite a while. Well, how long have you had yours in there?
A year.
Okay. So he really likes those.
I'm of the opinion you buy once and then you don't have to worry about it again. I mean, if you got something that's a Buckeye, it's Class D, it's using HypeX or Purify modules, and that's it. You're done. You don't have to buy anything else. Spend a little bit more and don't worry about having to upgrade.
Yeah. And you could probably spend a whole lot more and not really get an upgrade.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there are amps out there that are thousands of dollars for 2 channels, and you know, most people wouldn't be able to hear the difference in a blind comparison. So JR, do you guys find it worth the price of the MiniDSP 2x4 HD just for 2 subs in a non-dedicated home theater space? So you got a living room, only 2 subwoofers. Is it beneficial to get a 2x4 HD?
We might have different opinions on that. My opinion would be no if your AVR has 2 subwoofer outputs that are unique and not just a daisy-chained single that you can't control independent. Yeah, if you have independent subwoofer outs, I think that's probably sufficient for you. Probably, especially if you've got like a mid-tier or higher AVR, with like the XT32 on the Odyssey side or Dirac.
As long as you can get in and manually control things, I think that's fine. If you can't, I would do a MiniDSP.
And again, going back to measurements, if you've got like a calibrated microphone, RAW or Omnimic, you can physically see, are there issues there? Can I make it better? And then you should be able to just go in there and manually adjust crossover settings, your delay as far as your distance to better get that aligned. MiniDSP will do that too. It's just a little bit more money, and you've already got the software you need in the AVR, potentially. Now, if you don't, you only have a single sub out, or maybe you have dual sub outs, but they're basically just the same signal and they're not independent. Then the 2x4 HD might be. Well, thinking of that would still be the same thing, wouldn't it?
What?
No, because you can set independent delays on the MiniDSP.
Okay.
And then use your calibrated mic. Here's the deal: if you're just going to buy a MiniDSP and not have a calibrated mic or a way to measure the impulse response, frequency response stuff, you're not really doing yourself any favors. You're going to be better off with auto EQ settings, most likely. But you can probably fine tune the auto EQ settings a little bit better. Is the bottom line.
Okay.
So I mean, this goes back to your kind of conversation. Generally speaking, and Ryan, we might have different experiences on this, but generally speaking, I find that Odyssey does a pretty good job of setting sub distances and trims and all that kind of stuff. I've had Odyssey amps for almost 20 years. They're usually within about a dB of quality as far as SPL levels at 76 or 74 instead of 75 type thing. Like it's right on the money. And then the distances are usually close enough. Occasionally, like I said, you'll find something that you can raise a crossover point 10 hertz or 20 hertz and be better off. But most of the time it does a pretty good job. If you're doing it just by ear, you're probably not going to do better than the auto EQ.
But aren't you limiting yourself there just to delays and timings? I mean,
yes.
If you're wanting to do frequency response and stuff, I don't think you would want to stay with the.
You're not going to be able to do much with that at that point.
So if you're doing timings, yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think overall, the MiniDSP is going to give you more control than what the AVR is going to give you.
I would counter, and
I
can't disagree with what you're saying in general, but I would counter that if you buy, like, if you're mid-tier or higher quality equipment, I'm talking like say a $600 sub and up type thing, you can probably wrestle out what you need to do with PEQ by moving the subs, hopefully, rather than applying EQ. You guys know me, I'm kind of like less EQ is more type thing. Like I don't really like to use EQ. So I'd rather move the subs around and get a better starting position with a sub that has a nice native frequency response. And I think you kind of get into that realm at like $500-$600 subwoofers. And then you find the place that's perfect by moving the sub, and your auto EQ doesn't have to do a whole lot. And you don't need to do a whole lot manually, because at that point you're already pretty much set just by your placement.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of get it right in. It's kind of like with camera equipment. Yes, you can fix some stuff in post, but it's better if you just get the camera settings right to begin with. Then you don't have to really tweak it. So it kind of works the same way with audio. Get it right in the room physically. Then if you need to do some minor adjustments, that's a lot better than just having to, add a bunch of PEQ to it to try to fix some issues that you've got. All right, let's jump back here. Yamada says, I had 12-inch ported sub and then switched to a 14-inch sealed for Nearfield. I'm missing the roar of the port and added 2 sealed to reach there with no success. Will getting a ported 18-inch JTR make things better?
Missing the roar of the port.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know if you mean,
like, is that the violence that you were used to?
He's used to his slippers getting blown off.
Roar. So he switched to sealed, a bigger sealed. Still feels he's missing something. He added 2 more sealeds. So now he's got 3 sealeds, and he feels like he doesn't have as much roar, whatever that is,
as one ported 12
as a 12-inch. Now, could that be what we were talking about earlier? He hasn't time aligned them, so you're adding multiple subwoofers.
Quite possibly.
Doesn't necessarily mean you're fixing. You may be causing dips And so you're not even getting a meow at that point. I mean, it's forget the roar.
We talked about that in one of the previous podcasts too. I went over to the local guy here who had 3 SVS and he wasn't getting the punch he wanted. And when we were measuring, they were all out of phase. His AVR only had 2 subwoofer outputs and he had wired 2 of them together, but they weren't in phase. So effectively his 3 subwoofers were performing less than 2. So we dialed them in a little bit better.
And it's possible that 3 could be performing worse than 1.
Yeah.
Depending on how they're fighting each other and what they're actually doing. I mean, that's the only way I can see this happening. You've got multiple sealed subs, and then you're saying that you're missing something with the 12.
I mean, three sealed 14s aren't hitting as hard as a single 12.
Who makes a sealed 14? Why do I not know of a sealed 14?
I'm not sure. Yeah, M at us. Give us some more context, man. We'd love to hear. I've
never heard of a sealed 14-inch subwoofer.
I mean, I would say that a JTR 18 is going to be beneficial, but I think there's other problems going on.
Yeah, very well could be.
They do have 14-inch subwoofers. Where have I been? Memphis Audio, for car audio at least, has them.
Yeah. Most people aren't running those at home.
Who makes a 14-inch home theater sub, though?
I don't see that, but maybe I'm not Googling it right. But I do see car audio stuff.
Okay, so he's saying that... Arundel, yeah, 13.8, so it's close to 14-inch. So lately you'll hear me kind of hesitate when I say that now because I'm starting to question, dang it, am I saying it wrong? Because for a while I was saying Arundel, and that's not right. And then lately my last video I said Arundel, and they're like, no, I think it's more like Arundel. So now I question it every time I go to.
So is it you have 3 of the 1723 subs?
He had okay, yes. So that would be 3 sealed.
If that's the case, there's something's wrong.
Okay, yeah, because that should be a very capable subwoofer. I reviewed. I don't even remember the model number, but I was very pleased with it. So, and that's just in my 13 by 19 by 10-foot room.
Ryan, do you still have that sub from M-Wave that's in Arundel?
It just now you're saying Arundel.
Got it.
I don't know how to say it. I'm not going to pretend I do.
The cool thing is they told me, they said, Michael, we love hearing how everybody says it.
They argue within the company.
Listen to how these morons say our name.
They said we're going to have them on the podcast here probably in the next week or so, probably after Cedia.
Little does anybody know that the first person to say it right gets a full free home theater.
That'll be our first question to him. How do you say your name?
I'll ask him, man, for real. I want to. But what's weird is he pronounces it in. I mean, he's got a different dialect than me, so even the way he says it, I can't repronounce it. You know what I mean? So, but he said that roar could be the distortion.
Maybe Addis really likes the sound of the driver bottoming out.
I don't know.
So, the port chuffing.
Something's wrong though, if that's the case.
So my advice again: get a calibrated microphone, take some measurements, and see what's physically happening in the room.
Measure with one sub. Measure the volume with one sub. Add another one. See if it goes up or down. If it goes up, get it as good as you can using timing and placement, and then add a third one and do the same thing.
For real. Tyler says, when you were talking about setting up external amplifiers last week, is it the same process for a sub with an internal amp?
Yeah. So, yes. Right? Yeah. If it has a gain input attenuator knob on that subwoofer plate amp, yes, absolutely.
So apparently, M. Addis says the previous sub was also Arundel, 1961 series, 12.2 inch. So same brand, just some ported some.
All right. Last question on that: are all 3 of your new sealed subs the 1723s? And then we can move on.
Cool.
You can keep going, Michael. I'm just curious.
Oh, you're good. OJ Simmons, sorry. That threw me off. OJ Simmons says, question, is the fiber optic ceiling worth it or more of a hassle? I think it's really up to you. I personally could not see myself putting 1,000 fiber optic cables in my ceiling. That would not be worth it to me. I'd rather pay somebody if I wanted that effect. But
even then, it's really expensive.
Yeah, but some people like that, and some people want that cool factor, and yeah, it's really up to you.
Is
I've
anybody?
been in a theater with it. Ryan, have you seen one yet?
Yeah, it's
several.
But at the end of the day,
hopefully you're turning them off when you're watching a movie.
Yeah, I don't understand. But I'm more of a function over form person. If somebody's more for the aesthetics and form over function, I guess I get it. My new theater, I've already picked out the name. It's just going to be called The Void. It's just going to be a black room with some lighting. I mean, that's what it is. Gives you the best overall experience. But if that's what you're into, I guess it's cool.
Yeah.
Glowing endorsement.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Come buy a fiber optic star ceiling from me.
As with anything in life, I mean, you have to figure out, is it worth it to you? I can't tell you if it's worth it, because you're going to spend hours and hours and hours.
Oh, yeah.
Poking holes through there, trimming them. You got to glue them on there. So there's a lot that goes into that. So
and then when something goes wrong.
Yep.
I mean, they're cool, but they're really expensive. So I think it goes back to there's better things that are going to give you more for your money in your theatrical experience than a star ceiling.
Yeah. True. But again, depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for just the fun factor and something cool, go for it. But it's a lot of work from the guys that I've talked to. So Dustin, appreciate the $10 super chat. He says, if I run DLBC on my 7.4.4 system with my HTP1, but want to add wides and heights in the future, could I use the Dirac measurements and plug them in to the DSP, MiniDSP software?
No.
So why?
Well, if he's at the encoder is going to be wrong, because the HTP1's not going to know if he has those channels. At least, I mean, that's how it is on Storm. Maybe the HTP1 allows you to add channels and then have a different Dirac calibration file.
So he's basically saying he's taking the measurement down the road. He wants to add more speakers. Does he have to rerun everything, or can he just run those channels? Is that what he's saying here?
He's saying if he had 7.4.4 now, and he wants to add wides and add more channels, typically to do that, you have to rerun Dirac.
Right.
Because you can't modify the configuration until you rerun it.
Yeah. I don't think you can just say, okay, just run calibration or room correction for these new channels.
And your problem is if you run a MiniDSP, you're just splitting a channel, right? Which you don't want to do because you're just going to duplicate it. You can EQ it and you can time it, but it's not what immersive audio formats are supposed to do. You're just going to get a duplicated channel, which doesn't help really at all, unless you have multiple rows.
Yeah. Bruce says Ryan should be calling his theater the grave hole. Not sure why, but
why is that?
I don't know.
Grave hole. People gonna die in there?
I don't know. I mean, maybe
just bury people underneath the riser.
Yeah.
Like putting a Red Sox jersey in a Yankee Stadium.
Mercy. JR says he's got a question. Any thoughts on the XGME Horizon Ultra Dolby Vision long throw projector?
No.
I've reviewed one XGME. It was an ultra short throw. It's been several years ago. And honestly, it was okay, but that's the only XGME product I have reviewed.
All right. Before you look it up, how many lumens do we think it has?
I'm guessing. So it's a long throw. I'm guessing 3.
3 lumens?
100? 3,000. I think it's. I like how Jonathan and I are like taking zeros off.
I'm not saying it's accurate, but I think that they're going to claim 3,000.
I'll probably say 3 million.
But you asked, I think.
I'm saying realistically.
You didn't ask that.
2,200.
That's what I inferred.
I cheated already.
XGME Horizon. This is a long throw.
All right, bring it up on screen. I want to see this chassis.
Yeah, it's 2,200 ANSI lumens, and it is so basically it's one of these really portable.
There's no way.
Yeah. Oh, let's go to Chrome. There you go. And
No.
you can save $10 off if you use this coupon. Sorry.
It's about
no
the size
way.
of a coffee cup. Did you see that?
2200 lumens? No.
Yeah. $900, 1080p resolution. And see, this is what I have a problem with, guys. Be careful with marketing. Stunning 1080p resolution. Up to a 200-inch screen. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
200 inches.
at that size, it would just be a shadow.
Man, you'd be a pixel. I don't know. 2200 ANSI lumens.
So Samsung has their ultra portable. Where is its specs? Because I think the Samsung's like 400.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, yes, it is only 1080p, but here's the thing. I have viewed 1080p on a 150-inch screen, and it looks like doo-doo because your pixels are so big.
So
you stretch that 200, that's going to look horrendous.
Samsung says for their ultra portable, some reviews say 400, some say like 550.
Okay.
And I think that's probably close to what it can actually do.
So JR says that's the wrong projector. So my apologies. But that's
measured at 6 inches.
Like, you jackwagon.
Horizon. So
Listen to these guys. You guys are looking at the wrong thing. He's going to put it up, and it's going to be something the size of like a GTZ 380.
Ultra. All right, let me see what that is. XGME Horizon Ultra. So maybe that's a different one. Okay, Horizon Ultra. That looks like a window unit, like an air conditioner unit. Let me put this up here. So a little bit more expensive. So this one's $16.99. So it is 4K. Okay,
Is that
that's
ultra
better.
short throw?
23. Let's see what this thing looks like. No, it's like a box.
Looks like a microwave.
That's what I'm saying. It looks like a refrigerator. Or
Where does the lens come out?
It doesn't have one. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, where it's got to be ultra short throw.
How does that even work?
All right, let's look. Hang on. I haven't heard of this one.
Guys, it's got dual 12-watt speakers.
Where's the... Yeah, where did the lumens come out of?
Where did the lumens come out?
Oh, it is. Okay, so it is a... Yeah, see this picture right here?
No, it's long throw.
Look what's happened to that guy. He's like phasing in like Star Trek there.
We got a video here. Let's see.
So for $1,600, I think there are better projectors. Buy a used 5040.
Okay, so it's right in the front. Look at that. Did you see that? I don't know if y'all are able to see my screen. Let's see.
No, I just
what are y'all
see.
looking at? Okay, yeah.
Look at the kid phasing.
Watch this. I found a video. I thought I was sharing it, but it is not. This one right here. So it's right at the top of that.
It looks like the majority of the unit is speakers.
That would just be weird to me. Yeah, I don't know the application. Like, who's their target audience for that?
The average consumer.
Yeah, but where are you put? I mean, you're putting it on your coffee table.
Well,
yeah,
like my neighbor has those Samsung portables, and he's ecstatic with it, using it as a bedroom display.
Okay.
They only really work when it's super dark, though, because they don't have the lumen output.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, if you're looking for a home theater style projector in that price range, look at an Epson 5040. I think you're going to get a much better experience, lights on and lights off.
Can you?
I think there's something to that, Ryan. I was talking to Andy about this Pixel Pusher 15 on the forums not too long ago, and asked him if there was like any kind of like surprises, no-name companies who hit it out of the park with projectors, because he's doing projector reviews for several different publications now. Yeah. Like, because there's all these Chinese brands that people are unfamiliar with, right, and his response was basically not yet, not so far.
It's all about marketing, right? Yeah. If they can get you and market something to you, they've got you. Doesn't mean it has to be a good product. I don't think the Samsung is necessarily a bad product. I think it was with its original launch price, but now that you can get them for significantly less, given the correct user environment or use case, can be a fun experience, but it's not going to be as good as something else, like a dedicated home theater projector from Epson, Sony, JVC. There are some, like the 4Movie one the ultra short throw.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some projectors out there that have some weird names, but that do very well. But as far as these ultra portables, no.
Well, I was gonna say I bought my parents one of those ultra portables not a few years ago. The kind you set on your your table and you set it up on a wall, and I thought they'd have fun using it and use it every once in a while. And I don't know that they've ever used it a single time since because it's a hassle, right? You got to bring it out and put it on the table and hook up your player and all that kind of stuff. It's not a permanent installation type situation unless you make it that way. But in their house, it wasn't, so they're just not using it.
And I'm not saying that it won't be fun. What I think we're actually trying to say is if you compare this experience of what you're going to get from this product against something like the Epson, it's just going to get dominated. Like if you don't know any better, ignorance is bliss. It's going to be great because like I remember, and it depends on the use case. Because my Optima, putting it on the outside and using it on the outdoor projection screen, it's great, right? But it was super cheap when I bought it. Bought it used. It was great. So in those cases, yeah, it's fantastic. But if I were to take an Epson out there, the Optima would get annihilated. It wouldn't even be close. So it's all about what you're comparing it to.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of new ones on the market, and like you said, they're popping up left and right. You've got the 4Movie, there's AWOL, there's this JMGO. Yeah,
I mean, think about how weird the name Hisense is.
I was like, well, I don't know, Jimjo. Seems Jimgo. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But they're saying that it has decent reviews up here, I think.
So here's your question along the lines we're talking. This Dustin says that he's got a couple of these type of units and that they're very nice and worth it being a budget home cinema projector. Yeah. So question for you, Dustin, have you, and not to belittle your opinion in any way, but have you seen like an Epson or a Sony or a JVC to compare, just to kind of like ballpark, see what you thought of those, like in your same room or with your same equipment?
Yeah, because I haven't seen the Jim Go, so it'd be nice.
Because I feel like some of this stuff, and I'm not going to mention the name. I've talked to Ryan about this a little bit in the past, and Michael too. I got a projector sent in. It was a Chinese kind of up and coming brand, no name projector, if you will, and it was sent to me for review, right? Like, and I wrote the company back and I said, I can't give this thing a positive review. I wouldn't recommend buying it. I can't get behind it. Yeah. And I said, do you want me to send it back, or how do you want to rearrange shipping, that kind of stuff? At any rate, I showed that to several friends, and the best review I got from someone was like, this would be passable for most people. But everyone else was kind of saying like, nah, I wouldn't buy that. But that answer kind of comes to mind here as we're talking. Like, it's reached a threshold that's passable, but when you know that there's so much better for around the same price, it's hard to recommend it. Yeah. That passable can come if you don't have much experience around some of the other products, and you say like, wow, this is really cool. It's got a giant image. I got a 150-inch screen. I can throw it up in the backyard. Cool.
Right.
But it's not to the same level as some of the other stuff.
So Dustin does say he owned the 6050.
There you go. That's interesting. So
that's good.
He's like to see some of those that he's talking about then.
Yeah.
Dustin, do you sell your 6050 in favor of those other ones, or do you have the 6050 and those other ones are more for like your portable use or your backyard use type thing? So
he said I mostly had USTs, the LG. Man, he's on a couple of them. LG 915, BenQ 7050i. Dude, the Hisense L9G.
It's a good projector.
That's still one of my favorite ultra short throw projectors out there. So definitely, it's a little on the pricey side, but it's a great looking ultra short throw. Wow, yeah. So there's 75 companies manufacturing projectors now. Holy cow!
You got to think those companies will catch up at some point and make a very passable product. You don't think so, Ryan?
No. Well, no, not to the big boys.
At least they'll close the margin, maybe.
I would think so. Over time, I would.
Dude, it's like get more revenue and more people buy them. They've got more money to work with.
I think you guys may be surprised at how few companies there actually are. I bet you a lot of those are actually coming from the same manufacturers and just rebranded and put into different boxes. That's how it is with a lot of these products.
Sure.
It's just, a company will start up, create a name, and then they'll buy a lot of the same thing from a manufacturer and put it into different chassis. So I think the big boys are always going to have a substantial lead. Now, if the big boys weren't innovating, yeah, they'll catch up. But as long as they continue to innovate, I think it's going to be really hard.
I think even just the glass that they're using in some of these higher end projectors. I mean, these other companies, they're not putting in real expensive glass in any of these, you know. So I think that's going to be part of it. Didn't JVC start rebranding some BenQ projectors?
Yeah. The NZ3 is a rebranded BenQ. It's JVC's changed some settings and stuff, but it is a BenQ, which it makes sense. I mean, they don't want to spend R&D time to do that. So they're going to rebrand something and then kind of make changes to make it their own.
Cool, man. Good stuff. Mark Fox, good to see you, buddy. Jonathan, do you run your AV10 in direct or do you use the various movie modes?
I use almost exclusively Dolby Surround for almost everything, music and movies. It's set to just use native. So if a DTS soundtrack or DTS X soundtrack comes up, it'll switch over to that. But just for like up mixing purposes and for just general use, it sits in the Dolby Surround setting.
Will yours actually re-encode like a DTS into Dolby?
It will. They turned that off for a while, but they brought it back because the Denon and Marantz customers complained too much. But yes, you can cross code if that's what you're asking about.
Mine won't.
Herc says, Jonathan, what would the gain trims be with the MiniDSP in the signal path on the AVR and in the MiniDSP? Should the input gain, output gain to the subs in the MiniDSP also have a dB setting?
Yeah, you don't want to go above 0 on the MiniDSP. As long as you're feeding it in a below 0 setting from the AVR, you can probably go up to 0 on the MiniDSP, but not above. It's the same sort of logic that we talked about last week.
Okay. Bruce, so does Odyssey... Okay, we did that one. James, what's everybody's experience? What's more worthwhile if I can do only one? 6 Atmos, 4 Atmos, or front wides?
I have a pretty good opinion on this, I think, from my own experience in my own room, and it might be different for everyone else's room.
My vote is 4 Atmos. And I guess unless you got like 3 rows of seating or more,
Depends on the room.
Yeah, maybe.
I like my front wides a lot.
Okay. I think it's between 4 Atmos and front wides, and I say it depends on the room, because if the room's not ideal, front wides. I actually think front wides. I think it's people overestimate the amount of Atmos content or height top content out there.
So in all fairness, same thing can be said about front wides.
I think he's saying should I have a limit of 13 speakers? Should I have 6 on the ceiling and no front wides, or should I have 4 on the ceiling and front wides? That's how I read this question.
Oh, okay.
And in that context, I personally definitely recommend front wides and 4 ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would do that. I'm sorry. I thought it was 1, 2, or 3, but he's actually saying 6 Atmos or 4 Atmos with front wides. Okay.
Especially with a single row of seating. When I went to 6 ceiling speakers, which you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if I get my finger going the right way, is actually kind of a downgrade, if you will, for my main listening positions, because now I feel like some stuff is pressed and it's only coming out this row, and I still haven't got back up there and like listened to make sure. But I used to, like, when I sat in this row and I was kind of like in the middle of this HVAC drop down vertically, I did not have any like sense that the surround field was more behind me. And now that I've gone to 6 speakers, I feel like the surround field is more behind me. So it's kind of messed up my front row soundstage.
To really have 6s be ideal, you need to have it centered over your main listening position,
where this row is more like directly overhead,
or use duplication instead of doing it like have 6 channels. Cause I think it can cause some, like you're talking about, it changes the perception of where and how things are perceived.
Yeah.
So in this instance, I'm going to go back, and I still think what I think is my opinion. I think people would be shocked at how difficult it could be to perceive the difference between having your tops on and not.
Sometimes it'll fool you.
It will.
I've had that happen.
Yep. So I really think it's going, James, to depend on your room. And what your AVR or pre-pro can actually do and what kind of content and stuff you're watching.
I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again in this context. Spatial audio on Apple Music, there's a lot of like Atmos mixed music content. There's increasingly use of front wides, like dedicated use of front wides for an instrument or a vocal or even like a chorus or something that's coming out of front wides, and it's very clear and distinct. That's pretty cool. You may not see it so much in cinema content because it ends up just being an object speaker, but for some of the music mixes, like it's front and center, and it's really cool. I have a collection of tracks that are front wide tracks. They're pretty fun.
And I don't know why I'm laughing so much. SRW says I'm finding more content with wides now than there was a few years ago. So that's good news.
Yes, and the up mixers seem to do really well with front wides. So like if you're watching old content that was 5.1 and you're, say it's an old cartoon or something, with my kids, we're watching that kind of stuff a lot. The up mixers put a lot of that content in the front wides. That's nice to have.
I think studios in general are utilizing more channels than they were previously, unless they're Disney.
Yeah.
Nothing against Disney. I think Disney just knows who their audience is, and they master for that audience.
So Chris has got a good point here. He says, when the projector weighs 1.2 pounds, I doubt the lens is even made of glass. That's why it got me chuckling earlier.
I mean, how bright can it actually be at that point? Your heat sink's got to be like this big.
I know it. So funny. I love it.
That's a big reason why the JVCs weigh so much, is because their lens assemblies are enormous and their heat sinks are outrageous. And they take a lot of their chassis that they develop for simulation, because a lot of people don't know that that's a big part of JVC's market share is with the simulation market. So they're commercially designed, and then they offshoot those into residential, and they don't really change a whole lot. That's why they weigh so much.
Alien glass. I love it. Erod says, do you know or believe in speaker dB leveling after running room correction? I certainly do, because it can get it wrong.
Yes.
So I recommend it. Just getting a dB meter. Doesn't have to be anything fancy.
I don't think it can get it wrong. It will get it wrong. I've never seen it get it right.
So this is a company that just sent me 2 of these. This is called...
I thought that said topless.
Yeah, Top Tiz. So it's a big old bowl. Actually, I've never even opened it. I'm going to open it for you guys. Oh, it's actually way smaller than I thought. In the picture, it looks massive, but it's really not. It's actually pretty compact, surprisingly. Not, but get something like this. They're pretty affordable. Probably $20-$30 on Amazon, whether it's this model or something else.
I think every home theater enthusiast should have a SPL meter.
Yeah. I mean, you can use like one on your phone. It'll get you pretty close, but I'd recommend it's only 20. I'm just saying, not everybody.
I think you can get yourself into trouble though doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, that can be wrong, really wrong, and then you calibrated way too high or way too low.
But let me ask you this: would it at least balance it the same though?
Yes,
that's what I'm thinking. It'll at least be wrong across every screen.
It would depend
depends on the way the microphone's facing with the face of the glass. And
but
all
it would
that.
also depend on the frequency range the microphone could pick up. And if you're measuring lower frequencies, and if your SPL test tone is putting out lower frequencies on like your fronts than your sides, depending on if your crossover is variable, you can get yourself into huge trouble in that.
I don't even think it's like crappy phones that are wrong. Like I've measured my iPhone with my Omnimic to see how it's like 7 dB difference. So I mean, the Omnimic's right. It's a calibrated mic.
Tinnitus.
This is like 7 dB off. The phone thinks it's
also $300 difference. And I guess my point is not everybody.
I don't know. The iPhone's like $1,000.
Yeah, but not for the SPL calibration.
That's why they don't have the $30 for the mic, because they bought the $1,000.
Maybe they need to. We need to petition Apple. And
they need a phone, and then you can buy a calibrated dB meter. I don't know.
Michael, I think you could do it with a certain way of doing it. If you didn't try to use it as the number, like trying to match it to 75 on your phone, and you just said whatever it shows, if it shows 57 or whatever else, I'm going to use 57 for all the speakers, and all of them should be pretty close to that. Maybe a dB 2, 3 dB off.
Okay.
But don't try to use this as some sort of reference level thing, because it's just not. They're just not made to do that.
100%. Now, I would definitely recommend just buy one. You can even get the old Radio Shack meters. That's what I use.
They're not expensive.
No, $20-$30.
Yeah.
But I actually have a video on that. Imagine that. 820 videos on my channel. One of that is basically talking about the importance of level matching and how it can provide a much more seamless and immersive experience. Because think about this, if you're watching a movie and let's say your rear surrounds are 6 dB hotter than your fronts, your brain is going to be like going, oh man, that was really cool. Oh dude, did you hear that? Well, guess what? You've completely taken yourself out of the movie. You're no longer immersed in that movie. But when you get everything balanced and it's cohesive, same thing with your subwoofers. If your subwoofers, if you can't tell where they're at in your room and you just hear bass and feel bass, then that doesn't take you out of the experience. But when you're like, oh man, that was cool, and you're pointing to the subwoofer, you've kind of missed it. So balance is key.
But do not use SPL boosts as a way to combat distortion, because you're just creating more distortion.
828 videos. Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it, man. I've got a few. It's crazy. Who makes 820? Oh, speaking of videos. So I shared this with these guys. I'm still blown away at this stupid thing. I made that one YouTube short. That joker has, I'm just still blown away. It has right now 9 million views, 7,300 comments, and they're all going, these guys are idiots. It's crazy, man. So anyway, I just saw that. So yeah, lots of content on the channel.
And I want to clarify here previously, because I just saw this in a comment, that room correction has never worked. It's not that when I said it never works with room correction, it's not that room correction never works. It's that I've never had room correction get the SPL level matching correct. I always have to go back through and check it and then change it.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen that in my room, especially when I had the clip speakers. For some reason, the surround speakers were always several dB off. They were never exactly like my fronts. Oh, you know what, Jonathan? I think I may have figured it out. Remember we were talking about even just last week about the trim levels. So my previous La Scalas, they were bottomed out at -12 on the AVR. And so every time I would have to come back and adjust, because maybe they were trying to get them as low as they could, but then they just physically couldn't go any more to get
a lot of room EQ will only compensate to a certain level. It won't go past a certain level. So if you 12 is probably as far down as it'll go.
It is. -12 is as low as you can go on Odyssey. So that might have been it. But yeah, definitely I would highly recommend at least using a dB meter to see. Can you use the dB meter in REW? Great suggestion. 100%.
Those are actually better.
Yeah, 100% you can do that. It's more complicated, you know, because you got to hook up the HDMI. You got to get your laptop. You got to.
No, you don't even have to do that with that.
No.
It'll just listen to and you may have to calibrate it. So really, does it ask for a calibration on the?
Once upon a time,
mic?
I haven't used REW regularly for like 10 years, but in the old days, you had to use an SPL meter, an external one, to get your measurements right. Now, I think that they have those U mics that come with a calibration file.
They do.
It should probably be, as long as your calibration file is entered in REW, it should probably have the right SPL. Probably.
Yeah, but it's an extra step. You got to get a computer, boot it up, open up
REW. The REW and Omnimics, and really any software like that, I think is going to give you an actual better SPL measurement, because the mics are able to get down to a lower frequency range than the SPL meters can.
Makes sense. Which one, Michael? Okay, so that I'll show you. Here's what I do, even on my own videos. If you search for Youthman Immersive, if I can spell right, boom, it's right there. I'll show you what it looks like. Just search for Youthman Immersive, that one right there. Get a more immersive experience from your home theater by doing this, and doing this is, I'll drop it in the chat, level matching. Boom. Let's go back here.
I'm starring the questions as they come in, so if you got them, keep going.
Michael has replied to every single one. Not quite. There's a lot that I don't get a chance. I do my best, guys. I really, really do. When one thing that's messing me up is I get so many comments now based off that one, that short, that it's literally, it's bearing all the real comments, if that makes sense. So the comments that I'm gonna actually reply to, but I do my best. I'm gonna always be active in my comment section. John says, NZ9, what is the largest screen that you would use? And would you go 16:9 or scope? Or maybe he's saying, what's the largest 16:9 you can do, and what's the largest scope you can do? Would you just use that calculator?
What was the size of the screen that the NZ9 was on an M-Wave? Was it a 180?
150, I
Which
think.
150s?
I'm sorry. So some of the bigger rooms had bigger ones, like Seymour had theirs.
JTR's room had a NZ9, right? What size was that screen? 180, I thought. Is that not right? It looked gorgeous in there. Yeah, maybe it wasn't bright enough for Ryan's taste, but I thought it looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
That was doable to me.
I'd probably say 150. If you weren't using an anamorphic lens. If you used an anamorphic lens, you could probably go higher.
Yeah.
If you're on scope. Would you guys go 16:9 or scope? Will you both go scope?
I don't think he's asking that. I think the question, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what's the largest screen you would use for 16:9, or what's the largest you would use on scope? Maybe. I don't know. Me personally, if you're asking 16:9 or scope, I've had that discussion again. That's another video on my channel. We talked about it here on the podcast. I chose scope because the vast majority of the content that I watch is in scope. So there's no reason for me to choose a format that's not going to be viewed the most. And I just didn't want a big TV in my theater room. I want it when you walk in the room, you're like, whoa, this is something special. This is something different. The screen is wall to wall and it's wider than it is tall. And that's what you see in a lot of movies when you go to the cinema. So I was trying to replicate that, not just maximize a big TV, a big 16:9 image. Jonathan has a scope. Ryan has a 16:9. You have to decide what's important to you. What type of content are you going to be watching? Ryan's going to go with what is it? 2-1, 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason I thought you said that it was something else.
No.
2-0.
It'll be double as wide as it is tall.
Yeah. So 2.0 to 1 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, some reason my brain, I thought you were going with an almost square image, like a 2-1 or something. Well, I guess that would be the same thing. I don't know. All right. Let's go back here.
I'll probably do it, and then like the whole industry will change, and it'll be the dumbest decision ever.
Yeah. It's all good. JR, appreciate the $5 super chat. Which setting in the SPL meter for subs and which for your main speakers? And I probably gave you incorrect information when I did my video on this. I had a lot of people telling me different things, and I don't know if I had the right answer. My suggestion in the video was I use A-weighted on fast for my main speakers, and then I did C-weighted slow for my subs. And that may not be accurate.
C is usually recommended for subs and slow.
Right. So I got one right. Now what about your mains and your centers and surrounds?
A says it cuts off. I'm looking it up real quick to remember. A cuts off the lower and high frequencies and the person cannot hear. So it looks like below about 1,000 hertz, it starts rolling it off, and above about 12,000 hertz, it starts rolling off. So it really shouldn't make a whole lot of difference for that, because most test tones are centered between 800 to 1,200 hertz type thing. So you're probably in the ballpark of A. C would be safer because C rolls off at like 50 and then rolls off again at like 8,000. So
yeah, but why even use A though? I mean, you might as well just use C and not worry about it.
It's probably a different application, like not for home theater. It would be for measuring, I don't know, loudness.
Well, I'm specifically saying in home theater.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Somebody would use it in a different application, but maybe for us, we don't need that.
Absolutely.
So actually, I think what I remember. Yeah, never mind.
I don't think you're going to go wrong either way, really, for the type of test tones we're talking about. If you're doing bass test tones, certainly C.
Yep, 100%. I think that's universally.
I guess my point is most can do both anyway, so you might as well just use C regardless for home theater.
Well, I guess if A was more accurate for your mid-range and high frequencies, I think that's what his
If your meter has Z, that's the one to use because Z is flat frequency response of 10 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz plus or minus 1.5 dB, it says.
I never even heard of Z. I don't have a mic that'll do that.
See if that little thing the one that you told us, see if it has anything but A and C on it.
It probably has like a W version.
Top T's has got C and F, and then it's got F and S, so fast and slow.
Just A and C and none, probably.
Yeah, it says press 2 for A and C, but then there's a C and F. Yeah, AC frequency weighting. Yeah, I don't see anything about a Z. So no Z for you. All right, on to Red. Hi there, I'm late. What do you guys think about the first Dolby Vision projector? I hope we can start getting more Dolby Vision projectors. So typically you don't see Dolby Vision on projectors. The only ones I've seen them on for the most part are your ultra short throw projectors. Do we have any regular long throw projectors that do Dolby Vision?
Not from the main brands.
So you'd have to get, does Christie and Barcode, do they offer it? Okay. So who even offers one?
I think it's some Chinese brand.
Okay.
Looks like that 4Movie has it, as a quick Google search says.
But it's a short throw, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've seen some of the ultra short throws. They've got Dolby Vision, but I'm not sure that I've seen like a standard long throw that have them.
We kind of talked about this before. I think we all kind of agreed that we felt like it's kind of a watered down spec to say that the projector meets it, because Dolby Vision is supposed to be requiring that you can hit 1,000 nits.
And
projectors don't hit 1,000 nits.
Yeah.
So even if they say they're Dolby Vision, they're not hitting that. So it's sort of a watered down.
Well, I think if you hit 1,000 nits on a projector, you'd be blind.
Yeah, that'd be a rough.
I mean, well, you remember what that Griffin was like at 500? It was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah,
I mean, it was.
You're right. That was 500, and every time Lucy, like, it would go.
Oh
white.
my gosh, it'd go white, and it was
it was bright.
It's just different.
Yeah. Faux show. Hey John, appreciate the $10 super chat. He says, "Hey guys, when setting up near fields in a 7.3.4." Oh, sorry, this thing moved on me. Let me scroll up. Where one of the 0.3 was a near field, does the sub EQ include the near field, or is it better to EQ the 0.2 and then add the near field without EQ? Man, great question. Pretty complex.
I like near field without EQ, and I say that because you're looking for that feel, and if you're applying EQ, you're going to get a boost or less feel at that certain frequency. So if you do no EQ, and it's a sealed sub especially, it's going to be a very uniform feel going up and down the spectrum of subwoofer frequencies.
So you got a shelf.
I got a what?
You got a shelf down low, don't you?
Yeah, just to boost up the low end.
Yeah.
But no parametric EQ, no boosts or modes to try to fight room nodes. Just let those play natural and do the. And if you need to do room stuff, do it with your front and rear subs.
And so you're applying time alignment, and you're applying a shelf.
Yeah, so a shelf filter on sealed subs. Sealeds have a natural roll off. This just fights that natural roll off and makes it flat in room, and it's applied equally to all my subs in my room.
Oh gosh. Appreciate the question, John. So Mikey says that 1X Genie you just looked at had it. That Dolby Vision. Let's see. There was another one. So I'll hit this one real quick. DIY sound group speakers. Do you have any experience with these speakers for home theater? Yes, I do. 1, 2. I think I've heard 2. One of them was a phenomenal system. If you look up Youthman Epic home theater tour. Youthman Epic. No, I'm sorry, Endgame. Youthman Endgame home theater. You probably don't even have to do home theater tour, but that'll pull it up. So this one right here, this is what the video thumbnail looks like. This one right here with a Spider-Man in-game home theater. So that was a DIY sound group home theater. Phenomenal. 11.4.6 with stereo integrity. I think he had 420, either 21s or 24s in there. Really, really, really done very, very well. So we'll go check out that video. I guess I can drop it in the chat here. Copy link. I'll drop it in the chat for you. But that was a cool home theater tour too. You had just a great setup. But I figured I could answer that one real quick. All right, let's go back here. Brian, hello guys. I'm running a Denon 6300H with clips RP280F, RP450C, and RP160M for surround and front heights. I feel like my towers are not loud enough. I ran Odyssey and then SPL meters to 75.
That's right.
How big is your room?
Do you feel your center's loud enough?
He's saying that I ran Odyssey and then he SPL'd everything to 75 dB.
If you feel 75 dB isn't loud enough for your system, turn it up.
Turn up the main volume. Don't turn up that channel trim because then you'll be out of balance.
Sure.
Just turn the volume up.
Yeah, he said his towers aren't loud enough. So if, again, kind of going back to what we said, if you've level matched them all at the same level, your tower should be the same level as
I wonder if he's got dynamic EQ running, because that will boost the surrounds at lower volumes and it will make that front soundstage flip on its head, because now your rear soundstage is coming to life more. Okay. Turn off dynamic EQ under the Odyssey menu, Brian, and see if that doesn't fix your issue. And as you do so, you might want to add more trim to your sub too, or more.
Well, the other possibility too is maybe depending on how his system is running, maybe he's got distortion. And it's just not clear. Maybe
aren't those front towers? Those 280 front towers are pretty capable.
I'm not saying it's coming from the speaker. I'm saying it would be coming from the room.
Yeah, that's their entry level. So that's the ones that like Best Buy would have on their end caps and stuff. So,
but DRC is a good point. Dynamic range control and stuff is a big reason for a lot of that.
Yeah.
But turn down your system when you turn it off, because your system can get quite a bit louder when you turn it on. Turn it off, excuse me.
The video I referenced to was the one that caused them to sub to the channel. Appreciate it. That's a great video. Like I said, I love doing the home theater tours. Hopefully it gives you guys inspiration on your setups. Bruce says, if you have 2 subs in the back and 2 subs in the front, would they need to have opposite phases because they're across from each other? Great question, man. So that's what we've always been told in general. If you got sub in the front, sub in the rear, one of them's going to be out of phase or, you know, inverted to like 180 degrees. Is that true?
Yeah, it's so rarely exactly that.
Depends on the room.
You're better off setting them all to 0 and letting your EQ. So make them equidistant. Put the 2 front subs equidistant and the 2 rear subs equidistant from your main listening position. Run them off channel 1 and channel 2, assuming that you have adjustment on both of those, like your auto EQ process is adjusting both, and that's the way to do it. So your 0 phase is letting your AVR do the timing.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just going to say the chances of it being exactly 180 is just not very high. If you had, you know, your calibrated mic or your REW session or Omnimic session, you could figure out, but it's just not very high that it'll be exactly right at 180 switch.
So in my room, I've got 2 up front and 2 in the rear, and I only have 1 sub out of the 4 that is out of phase. That needed a phase inversion, and flipping it made a huge difference. But my point with this is that it's not always both are going to be out of phase or anything like that. You're just going to need to do what we always tell you guys to do. EQ with 1 sub, add another one, get it correct through timing, make sure everything sums and increases. Do it with a 3rd one, add the 4th one, and just make sure you're getting your timing and your phasing, and just make sure you're going up. As long as you're increasing, should be okay.
Let's have some fun. Ryan, that's your resting face. Make an angry face real quick. I don't think you can. I had to, man. That's awesome. I love it.
No.
I love it. We gotta have some fun on the show, man.
This is my happy face.
That's right. All right. Brian says GSG sub 18-inch or 21-inch full Martys. I mean, what do you need? Yeah.
21's gonna have a lot more output. If you've got the space for it, it's a lot bigger box.
But the 18 is going to be able to dig substantially deeper because those 21s are tuned pretty high.
The box determines the tune with
I
the ported
think they're
subs.
tuned at like 25 or something like that, if I remember right.
SG 21-inch ported sub.
Full Marty. I don't know what they say on here. Yeah, 17 hertz tuned. 120 dB at 17 hertz. So 395 pound. Holy cow. Oh, that's probably two of them. That's what it is. There's two of them. 150 pounds each. Man. Yes, you're talking 17 hertz tuning on that.
You're going to be able to get lower than that from a sealed enclosure.
Those Marty subs are ported for sure.
No, I know. I'm saying if you did like a GSG sub 18 that was sealed against the Marty, just going to go back. Do you want a lower tune or you want output? Because it's the same thing if you asked, like, should you go RS2 or 4000? It's the same thing. Do you want to go lower or do you want more output?
Mm-hmm.
The 4000 can't go as low as the RS2, but I got more output for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. These are the dual 18s on the Evolution is showing a frequency response of 20 hertz, and that's a sealed cabinet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wonder if that's the driver.
Single, it could be. The single, yeah, single's 20 hertz, 190.
What do yours go down to, Jonathan?
Last I saw on these things, GSG doesn't even sell a sealed sub. Where are you seeing a sealed sub?
So okay,
so you're just looking at the driver itself.
It's the cabinet. Yeah, they don't show a here, I'll show you what I'm just on their website. So yeah, so that might be dictated by the sub too. So like right here. So you've got a single 18, $200, and then they show a frequency response.
They do have a sealed sub now. I looked in there like the last couple of months, and that wasn't an option.
So they recommend this 18-inch driver, and I'm assuming that's where this is coming from, maybe.
So that's the same driver I have, the UM1822.
Okay.
What's the internal cubic space? Does it say?
Internal cubic space. I don't see a number.
That's a great, I mean, that's the same setup I have effectively. I don't know what the internal space is compared to mine, but it's going to be similar. I have 8 of those. If you just want a couple of them, you're not going to get enough low frequencies to really make it worth your pursuit of like single digit frequencies and so forth. But there is no real limit. I mean, you can play a 1, 2, 3, 4 hertz test tone and the drivers will still move. You just have to have, they don't play as loud a volume at those really low frequencies, so you need quantity of them. If you're really going to try to recreate those low frequencies, you need quite a few. You probably need more than 8 if you want to try to do reference level at like 5 hertz or something.
Your room would fall apart.
So Tyler says they have a BTS 18. What's that?
Behind the screen.
Okay.
God, you even home theater.
Dude, I've never called it a BTS. I call it an acoustic transparent screen. I don't, you know.
You going to call it an acoustically transparent screen sub?
No, but I mean, I've never referred to a subwoofer as being only applicable behind.
The reason they're called that is because the sub is designed to be behind the screen. It's thinner.
So slimmer. Yeah.
And they're designed to sit sideways.
That's fine. Again, I've never bought a BTS subwoofer, so that's why. Hey, dude, I learn something new every day. I'm sorry you have all the knowledge.
Just can't believe it.
Look at this. Ryan has a solution for that.
Yeah, 4,000 are just too deep for my room. Sure.
Put them in your wall.
Cut it, man. Cut it.
When in doubt, break out the saw. There's always a solution. I mean, Jonathan moved a whole post just to get his seats to fit. There's always a way.
Couple inches. Joe Lennox says, "What do you guys think of the Epson LS12000?"
Terrible projector.
I like it.
No, it's a great projector.
I think it's good. We've seen it at M-Wave 2 years in a row. It's a nice little projector.
I like it. I actually have my JVC hung back up because I want to try that new firmware, and I miss my Epson, to be quite frank. So there's that. It has really good motion. I keep saying that.
Are you ever going to sell that JVC?
I got that last comparison video to do, which you need to come over and help me with.
There you go.
Well, I didn't know it was for a video.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, here's the reason why. I want to use your fancy dancy like super end high end calibration gear to like make sure the calibration's real good for that. And that we can potentially eliminate any weird undertones that might show up on the camera and kind of throw off the comparison.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying about like stuff shows up on film that you on camera that you can't see with your naked eye so much. So I want to try to eliminate that if we can.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Jonathan's channel, check out Jonathan Von England on YouTube. He's got great stuff. And he's going to be coming out with another video. Like it.
Dude, I got to do an Arundel video.
There you go.
I was going to work on that tomorrow.
Arundel.
We're
going to ask him, man.
I need to know that before I make this video.
Email them.
Yeah.
Phonetically. Well, here's the thing. If you go to Google and you search for Arundel, it's an actual location overseas. And it'll pronounce it on there. You know,
I'm gonna ask Alexa how to say it, and then every time I say it, I'm gonna dub it over with with Alexa saying it.
That's awesome, man. I know I goofed it up, but like I said, those guys, they're super cool. They're grateful. So Dingle says, "What are you guys' thoughts on Triad speakers? I'm remodeling my basement and have been considering Triads. Thanks." So these most Triads that I've heard are all in walls. Do they even make a tower or bookshelves? Do they?
No.
Yeah, Triad Gold, Triad Platinum. They're full towers. They're beautiful speakers.
Are they?
They have full towers?
Yes, unless I'm thinking of something wrong. Triad
I don't think
Gold.
so.
I've always heard them in here. I'll go to their website here. I'll pull it up. I've only seen and heard their in walls, so I just kind of assume that that's what
I don't think they have. Do they?
I don't know. I'm about to find out. Ooh, look at there. These are full-fledged.
No, that's a monitor.
But those are okay. So they're not.
That's what they call a monitor. They're like
but they're not just in walls.
I guarantee they do
like
because here they are. I've been to this theater and I loved them, to be quite frank. Let me show this.
Okay, really dumb question. Where's their?
Oh, you got
I can't click on anything. What in the world?
I think they do anymore.
Maybe they stopped, but they used to, and they have some good speakers when they had them.
Dude, you can't click on anything on their website. It's a one page. That is booty. Guys, call me up, man. I know a guy.
Yeah.
Youth man, I'll hook you up. Because I can't click on anything. It's weird.
No, they either do on. Well, is this considered a tower?
I put it in private chat. Pull that one up.
Here we go.
Michael.
Private chat. I'm getting there.
I guess that could be considered a tower. It's got feet on it.
What did that show? Craig John's Theater?
Yeah, so that's one of the
okay.
That's one of the first theaters I've been to. We went there in 2012, 2011, which was one of the first theaters I've been to that was truly reference capable. Like those speakers are pretty expensive, but that was a truly reference capable theater. So that's the center channel. Can you zoom out and get the whole front sound stage? And I've talked about this guy's room several times because there's always one that sticks out fondly in my mind. He behind that curtain is the 12 inches of Denon. So he was the fellow that did the dead front live rear build, and his room sounded stellar.
They still have those speakers, but I consider those more monitors because they're on pedestals, like they're on stands. So I guess they make in-room speakers.
So it's not just monitors. I mean, not just
No, they make in-wall, on-wall, and in-room.
Okay.
Is what they call them.
Okay. Makes sense. So back to the question. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've heard rooms with their speakers that I'm not terribly fond of too. So, you know,
Yeah.
Probably all in the implementation, really, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of talked about that before. The room that I'm recalling that wasn't my favorite was no treatments on the wall, just all bare walls, and so much better it could be just with acoustic treatments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. I was curious on the comment. SRN Compter says Triad speakers are now owned by Control 4 and they're sold via Snap AV.
That's correct. They're both owned by Snap AV.
And then Tim says Triad is usually associated with Control 4.
They're owned by Snap AV.
Okay.
They're not independent anymore.
I didn't know that.
I mean, I think they're okay speakers.
That's me. I mean, I haven't heard a Triad system that was like blown. Now I've heard some good systems, but I don't think I've ever been like, oh my gosh, like this is where I want to go. But very few in-walls I've heard that I was really pleased with. It wasn't until literally last weekend I heard the first in-wall system that sounded phenomenal.
But Triads aren't typical in-walls. They're cabinets in a wall.
Mm-hmm. But it's still an in-wall.
I mean, kind of. Their in-wall and on-walls are almost identical.
But it's still an in-wall. If it's got, I mean, because think about it, a Per-Listen has a cabinet and it's meant to go in walls, and they market it as an in-wall speaker. They don't say it's a tower that you.
They're not designed the same way though, because it's a Triad. No, hold on. A Triad is more like what you would think of with a JTR box.
Okay.
Like a Per-Listen, you have the front that mounts over the drywall and all of that. That's not how the Triads are. The Triads are more of like a box that you sit in the wall, and it. That's so more of what it is.
I see what you're saying. I just
so yes, technically it is still designed to be an in-wall, but it's designed a little bit differently.
Okay, interesting.
So I think they're not bad speakers. I think you'd have a good experience with them as long as they're properly implemented. If you want to talk about pricing, I sell them.
Yeah, Herc says they measure well. I have a few of their own wall bronze LCRs. At lower volumes, they sound pretty good. Close to reference volume, they compress. You need the golds to get anywhere near reference.
Or platinums, at least at the time.
Yep. It's still the same. That's how it is with most manufacturers. The higher tier stuff has better power handling, different drivers and things like that.
Yeah, Wayne Pomposa in the Philippines. I had a chance to fly over to Wayne and visit with him and his wife. Visited a really awesome home theater there. And so he uses some Triads over there as well. Let's see. So Dave says, what's the difference? What difference is audible when setting trims? If one speaker is 75, another 76, would you notice a difference? No, you're not going to notice a difference in 1 dB. Or is a half a dB noticeable? Yeah, I don't think you can. What is the... I'm trying to remember the number.
It's logarithmic.
It's
the
like
dB scale?
No, like when can you hear it? Is it like 3 dB roughly?
Well, then it becomes easily.
If you're doing real critical listening, a human can hear the difference in a half a dB. If you just got it in your whole system and you're just like one speaker out of 13 or 5 or whatever is a half a dB louder, you're not going to hear that. But if you're talking about like your stereo image and you're just listening to a left-right pair, or if you're trying to listen to the same speaker and it's going up and down a half dB,
you can tell.
You can tell the difference there.
I guess if I did my left one at 75 and if I switched to my center and it was at 76, my ears would go, yeah, they're pretty good. I don't know if I would be able to hear a dB difference for sure.
Half a dB and even less than that will change your imaging. If you're doing,
I mean, I think it's we're talking critical listening. Michael, that's what you're trying to focus on type thing. You can hear a half a dB, and they've done a lot of tests on that, and that's kind of where humans start picking out the difference.
Wow.
But if you're talking about like listening and saying, I'm going to listen to that speaker and then turn around and try and listen to this one and say, are they the same volume? No, you
No.
won't be able to do
I
that.
guess that's
At
what
3
I'm,
dB, you definitely could.
Sure.
that's what I was thinking. Okay. And ideally, again, use the SPL meter. There's no reason not to get them matched, you know. So Ricky says I have a Marantz processor. My question is it worth getting amps with balanced inputs, or should I just use the unbalanced the RCA inputs?
For short runs, it just doesn't matter. I've gone both ways and tried that back and forth, and we've done comparisons, AVR comparisons with both XLR and RCA. If your RCA is like 2 or 3 feet and you keep it out of electrical interference, you won't hear the difference.
So here's my only caveat to that. So I'm not one of those guys. It's like RCA unbalanced sucks and balanced XLR is amazing. I'm not that guy. But the good benefit, one benefit, even with short, is you're going to get, is it 3 decibel gain in an XLR?
Yeah, but you can offset that with your channel trims and so forth. Like
True.
it doesn't just have to be louder.
Yeah,
you set those gain structures up.
You got not more headroom, but I guess in my thought is if you've got that extra gain, then you don't have to turn your trims up, or vice versa. You may turn your trims down 3 dB, and wouldn't that maybe give you a cleaner
There
signal?
are times when the extra voltage coming out of the balanced can be beneficial, but for the average Joe, I don't think it's going to matter.
Not a big deal. But anyway, that would be like the major benefit. And again, I've used RCA for many, many, many years, and I loved it. You know, didn't have any
I think if it's marginally more expensive, like not much at all, to include the balanced, you get them. They do help. I mean, it is nice to have.
Well, it's also nice just to have the flexibility, you know. So, and I've even seen some processors, like say for instance, down the road, you switch out from a Marantz to something else. Some processors I've seen, they don't have both. They only have XLR. So if you got an amplifier that has both, it just gives you more flexibility.
Most processors will only have XLR. Most processors don't have.
A lot of them have AVR. A lot of them have RCA, I should say.
Yeah.
The lower end ones, $1,000 units, will only have RCA. Typically.
No. I'm talking about pre-pros. AVRs definitely do, but once you get into a pre-pro, I don't think a lot of pre-pros have.
I have Marantz AV7706, and I am almost positive it's got both. Could be wrong.
No, you're probably right. They're on both sides of that fence, but traditionally pre-pros are more XLR focused.
Yes, most of them are just going to have.
I would say
XLR
that this
only.
should be an M-Wave thing if you guys think there's a big difference there, because I don't.
No, I don't think there is.
There is. I don't think there's any difference once you match gain structure. If your cable's short enough to not pick up noise.
I'm simply saying that there are certain applications where the increased voltage can be a benefit, but for the most part, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So here's I'll try to zoom in.
I mean, to clarify, outside of the balanced input being rejected for interference and that being a plus, for the most part, as long as your runs are short, you're fine.
Yeah. So that's the Marantz AV7706. It has both RCA.
Yeah, but if you go to like an HTP1, it's only XLR. Allstorm, Altrinov, only XLR. I'm saying most of them are only XLR.
I'm just saying. But most people don't have a Storm. That's what I'm saying.
Even the HTP1 is
most
only XLR.
Don't have HTP1. I promise you, man. Vast majority of people.
I know they don't.
My
statement was simply most pre-pros only have XLR.
Yeah.
I guess I should have clarified and meant not most pre-pros in existence that people own.
Yeah. Most of the ones that you have owned have only had it. I get it. AVM 70 has both. Come on, man. We gotta have some fun with this. All right. Ricky, good question, man. Okay, do y'all think the NZ7 is the best projector in the $10,000 to $11,000 price range? Should one look at the Sony 6000 ES instead? So if you got a budget of 10 grand, roughly, NZ7, Sony 6000. Pros and cons?
I can tell you right now that
compared them.
They're going to be close. The 6000 is going to have more light output.
Okay. So brighter for the 6000.
So once you throw an HDR tone mapping into the picture, though, it's not necessarily brighter at that point, because the auto wide functionality on the JVC can bring it back to bare. It gets tricky.
But I would say that JVC, a lot of the reason why it comes across as brighter is because they blow out their brights in a lot of the tone mapping. I do have a demo 6000 that needs to find a home. So if you want a Sony demo XW 6000 ES,
the Sony can look a little sharper with some of those settings. I know
reality creation engine and stuff like that. Yeah, they're both good projectors. Tone mapping, I think technically on the JVC is probably going to do a little bit better. Sony's got the technical lumen benefit. The Sony's going to be quieter. I mean, they're both good. That's all I got.
Sony's not for me, man, because their PWM looks like a jackhammer. I can see that strobing with my bare eyes.
And what is PWM?
Pulse width modulation for their light control. Instead of having like a steady 80% light output, it's doing a black frame intermixed with white bright frames. So JVC does it, but I can't see it with my naked eye, but it bothers my eyes. Sony, I can see it with my naked eye, and it looks like a strobe light to me. I can't do it. Like when we watched that 7000 series at your house, Ryan, it was making me crazy. It was making me crazy. Like, this is not, how can anyone like watch this? But then I realized just the eyes are different. People see different things. That doesn't affect everybody.
Yeah, I've never seen that on any of them. And we've done side by side JVC, NZ 7, 8, 9. We've done the Sony 5, 6, and 7, the Epson, and I've never noticed that.
Scrin, are you still here? I guess I'll just say the price. So the Sony 6000 that I have is $8,000 out the door. If anybody wants it, it needs a home. It was only used at M-Wave, full warranty. It's got a calibration on it, and I think for $8,000, that's going to be a hell of a deal.
Reach out if you need it.
He wants it with under 500 hours. No, that's a different conversation. I was going to say he's got way less than that on that one.
Probably got 55
hours on it. Well, probably more than that. Maybe 3 days worth. So you got 16 hours on it, 15 hours on it. I like this one. Zapiti or the Zidoo. Zapiti or the Zidoo. Which player is better? Kind of leaning towards the UHD 3000. So to me, again, I haven't reviewed all of them. There's different models of the Zapiti. There's different models on the Zidoo. To me, the Zidoo was a higher end unit. Seemed to have a little bit snappier interface. The Zapiti that I've got in for the review, I know one thing, like you can just click to go through scrolling, and it's kind of hesitant. You know what I'm saying? It's not super fast, but I mean, both of them are great players. They both do the same thing. They play just about anything. I would just look at the specs on both of them to see, you know, if there's, and again, each model, there's different tiers. You've got like $1,000 one, a $1,500 one, a $3,000 one. I think I had the $3,000 one, so I probably would expect it to be a higher quality than the Zapiti that I've got in.
I'd say Zidoo.
So, like I said, I think at least from when I reviewed it, I mean, I liked the Zidoo. It was nice player. I didn't need hardly any of the features though on it. It had a lot of, the model that I had was kind of geared for audio as well, so they had a lot of 2-channel stuff on there and DACs and stuff that I would never really use. So, Tiki time. What's that?
No, I was just going to say Zidoo for sure, and if he wants one, I can help him a little bit on price point.
So you're a dealer for? See, I didn't even know that for Zidoo.
Nice. I have access to him.
Tiki time. Is it feasible to mount a USTP to the ceiling with a slate screen for the star field effects, so you don't have to make your ceiling a pin cushion with fiber? What is he asking?
He's asking if you can use a projector to project a star ceiling on your ceiling instead of using fiber optic, and I would not do that.
Yeah, because you're just shining light up there.
And then, well, then you're washing out your room.
That's what I'm saying. It's getting reflected back into your room. So it kind of defeats the purpose of this twinkle little stars. You know, when you go outside and you look up at the stars, all you see is the individual lights. You can see black in between there. But if you're shining light up there, most projectors aren't going to be able to shine black on your ceiling. So you're going to be reflecting light. I think you're going to lose the effect of there, Tiki. Nicholas, do any of y'all know how ARC aligns multi-sub? Is it different to Dirac? So it's talking about ARC, Anthem Room Correction. Also, is there any measurements that we can do to confirm a successful auto calibration?
I'm trying to remember what InsoKit has. I think he had an ARC, and I think that uses Anthem, or Anthem versus ARC. InsoKit Keith from Kansas City here, from our local group. I think he just bought a Anthem 520 or something like that uses ARC.
Oh,
I'm probably speaking out of turn here because I don't have a lot of familiarity, but I got the impression from talking to Keith and from kind of just hearing over the years that once ARC sets its settings, you don't get to like customize it yourself. Like you're kind of locked out.
Yeah.
I'd make sure that's something you want to look into to see if that's something that happens and bothers you if it does. Because it's nice to be able to kind of tailor your settings after it's done. But their design is, hey, we've done the auto calibration from you. We don't want you changing crossovers, and we don't want you changing that kind of stuff because it can mess up our calibration, if I recall correctly.
I don't know how ARC does MSO.
I'm not sure. And as far as like, you know, are there measurements that you can do to confirm a successful auto calibration other than taking, say, a calibrated mic like the mic 1 or the Omnimic and measuring to see if it got the timings right that we were talking about earlier in the show, seeing if your alignment, your
impulse response,
the
frequency response,
crossovers and things like that, you could play with them to see if you can get it better. Sometimes you might be able to. That would be, but there's not like a one button that says, hey, did this do it right? There's really nothing out there that's going to go, oh yeah, Odyssey got it correct this time. Or Dirac Live or whatever. Dionysus Live says, does the Sony 6000 have better blacks than the NX7?
No. The NX7 has better blacks than the NZ series. Measurably. I don't think you're going to see it.
Well, because it's got the bulb and it's got the iris that clamps down and all that, right? So it's kind of a dynamics type higher contrast level, I think. Now you just went from a NX7 or NX5. What do you have, Michael? NX5 or
NX7
to an NZ8. Have you got to do much time comparing them?
I haven't connected it, man. I've been trying to crank out as much content as I can going into Cedia because I know I have 10 videos to make for different brands. So I'm having to put aside my own personal stuff to make sure, because I'm even behind on review units that people have sent me to loan, and I really need to get it back to them. So I'm kind of putting my own personal. I'm ready, man. I want to get it hooked up, but I haven't even seen it yet in my own room.
Well, keep that question in mind. Does a black level make any noticeable difference to you subjectively between the two?
It'd be hard to know. I mean, think about it. I sold mine 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. If you don't have a way to do side by side.
I don't think he's going to notice side by side. It was hard for people to even tell the NX7 against the NZ8. Or it was the UB420 against the NZ8. And people were having a hard time. You remember that in 2022 at the projector comparison?
Not UB420, RS420, right?
Sorry, RS420
or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, the old one. But
it actually won a couple times.
The RS400 or 420 or whatever it was at that time actually had better black levels in the ends. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, as far as from Sony to JVC, JVC's, they just have better black levels. They don't have better everything.
But that NZ7 is going to struggle with ANSI contrast. I don't know what the Sony's is in comparison. I've never paid attention to it side by side.
Ryan, can you buy a 2-to-1 screen or is it custom with fabric?
You can absolutely buy one. Seymour and Stewart will make you one, no problem. Both of those manufacturers, it's not really too much more expensive, if any, to get a custom size screen down to the millimeter. So you could make it whatever you want. You could cover your whole wall if you wanted to. Granted, those screens aren't hugely cheap anyway, but they'll do it for you.
Sure. Imada says, what amplifier do you recommend for Croson and kickers, like butt kickers in general? Croson own amp go down to 5 hertz. Is that necessary?
Yeah, it's necessary. If you're trying to do tactile transducers, you want the full frequency response, but I don't know that that spec is something you should worry about. Most amplifiers are going to go down to 5 hertz. There's exceptions to that. We've talked about it before. Like Crown has any of their DSP crowns roll off at 20 hertz.
A lot of pro amps roll off at 20.
Yeah. You do want, if you're buying a tactile transducer to reproduce those ultra low frequencies, you do want your amp to be able to do it. Do I think you need to buy a Krausen amp to do it? No, I don't think that.
No, nothing. In an apartment setting, thinking about doing upfiring speakers. Is it worth it? Or should I just be happy with 5.1? 9-foot ceilings, popcorn ceiling, though? Or popcorn ceiling 2? I think upfiring speakers can work. But I mean, everything, it's so weird. Everything has to be aligned like perfectly. And it's got to be just the, and I don't know what that right setting is. I've heard it. It's been convincing in my room. But that was only for like 2 seats. I guarantee if I would have had the people, because I did like like a blind comparison. I only turned on the upfiring Atmos speakers. And I had my son and at that time, she was my daughter. No, they were just engaged, I guess. But now it's my daughter-in-law. They came in. I said, hey, I'm just going to play a clip from a movie and you tell me where you hear the sound. And I said, just point to where you're hearing it. And so every time they were pointing to the ceiling. So the sound was reflecting off. But as far as, is it gimmicky? I don't think it was. But I think not all upfiring Atmos speakers are equal either. So yeah, it's hard to say, is it going to be worth it? Sometimes a properly done, let's say a 5.1 is better than an improperly done 5.1.2, if that makes sense. But I get it. You're in an apartment, you can't cut holes in your ceiling, can't really mount height channels to your walls probably. So you are limited. But man, a properly 5.1 can be really immersive and get a great sound in that. And what I don't know too is how does popcorn ceiling, that may really impact the way that sound is reflecting off of there versus just a flat ceiling. Angelo says, thoughts on a MadVR home theater PC versus an Envy?
I don't know who would be able to talk about that. Difference there is the MadVR home theater PC is kind of like the beta test program for HDR tone mapping for Envy. It can do some things, like it has a rudimentary implementation of custom zoom configuration, meaning it's black bar detection and maximizing things, but it's mainly just HDR tone mapping. The Envy can do HDR tone mapping, custom zoom configuration, so it can eliminate black bars, constant fit aspect ratio management, so you don't have to worry about lens shifting anymore. 8K upscaling, motion AI, so AI-based motion interpolation, geometry control, so your projector could be in the corner of a room and firing on to a projector, and we can pre-warp or distort angled screens, curved screens, all that stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that Envy can do, and the home theater PC is just kind of a one-hit wonder.
There's a reason why it costs more.
Get me out.
I don't know what you're doing. I'm just gonna let you struggle there for a while.
Just keep going there till you
Get me out.
Hey, you made yourself big. So I was gonna figure
I
out.
did not.
I made it big. I made it big.
I assume you did. You're like, look at me. last few questions.
I'm the important one.
No, Margaret says, time to go to work. Thank you for the video, guys. We're in China waiting. We in China waiting for that smile, Ryan. You handsome.
You got one just a minute ago.
Hello, dude. Nicholas, any of y'all use bass traps? I don't necessarily. I tried bass trap in my one corner for many years, and it was just some DIY ones, and have no idea what kind of insulation they had in there. Had two of them stacked up, floor to ceiling, 10-foot ceiling in one corner of my room. And one day I'm like, you know what? I've got a mic. Let's measure it. Let's see if they make any difference. So I measured it in the room, moved them, measured again. Nothing changed. So I sold them. I'm like, all right, these are.
Most bass traps are not even close to being large enough.
I'm like, they're not doing anything in my room.
They'd have to be enormous.
Now, the interesting, in a way, I might have a bass trap, and that's my riser. Because it's,
sure.
It's got huge amounts of insulation in that. So technically that might be a bass trap, but I don't necessarily. Jonathan, you don't have any bass traps, right?
No, my ceiling is an absorption because I got that 9 inches of pink fluffy up there and the black theater F tile. But like Ryan said, that bass trap has to be 5 foot thick to do much of anything. And you know, with your measurements showing the same thing, like they're kind of a gimmick, really.
Yeah. Let's see. Bruce, I have an interesting question for you guys. What do you think the cheapest speaker series that can handle reference with zero distortion and no ear fatigue? Man, that'd be only a guess.
JBL monitors.
I don't know. I mean, do any of them have zero distortion though?
No.
Well, none of them are going to have zero.
No, speakers have quite a bit of distortion.
So
I think he's just talking about like
what's a good speaker?
A good
audible
level.
Maybe he's talking about audible distortion.
Audible.
Yeah.
Something from JBL.
There's a lot of like pro audio. Once you get to the $200 to $300 or $200 to $300 mark with pro audio, you can get into reference capable speakers in a typical home theater room. Those Mackie C200s, for instance, that I had, those are reference capable. And they at the time they were $200. COVID hit them, and now they're $300 speakers.
Yeah.
But in as far as like bookshelves from Best Buy or towers from Best Buy, you're gonna have a hard time getting there at all. Regardless of price, because the soft dome tweeter can't get there, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that's interesting, so the Arundel 1723s have a soft dome. It's a 1.1 inch soft dome tweeter. So is it going to be able to get reference?
I'm going to do some compression sweep testing. I was planning to maybe do it today, but family went swimming instead, so we'll do it. I'll try to do it tomorrow, and I'll let you know.
With room gain,
you can hit
maybe, but on its own, I'd say no.
I don't know yet, because it depends. Like a 1 inch soft dome usually can't get there, but if these have, I don't know if they're fancy tweeters or if they're just, I don't know anything about them. Yeah, so I'll do a compression sweep and we'll see.
Somebody asked me that. They were like, hey, y'all been saying 1 inch can't hit it, so that means the Arundel can't, right? And I went, that's a great question. I said, I'm not opposed to cranking it up and seeing.
Yep, we'll see.
We can get some output out of them.
And more importantly, I'll do it slow, and I'll do it with compression sweeps in line. So like plus 3 dB or plus 5 dB at a time. We'll just see where they start, whether they make it or whether they start failing out. You can see at what frequency. And if they start behaving like it's not rising in parallel, I'll quit, because I don't want to damage these speakers that I get to review. But you know, we'll be able to tell pretty easy.
Nice. So let us know what you find out. So JC Reynolds, Michael, what is your front row to your 150 inch screen? Is it 11 foot, 12 foot? This is an extension to the conversation we had at Audio Advice Live. So it's neither of those. When I'm reclined, my eyes are 9 foot from my screen, 150 inch. And I love it. So closer than 11. My rear row, I think, is about 14 feet. White glove review with a 7.1.2 system. Would you set up the Atmos as front height or top height on a Denon AVR?
Top.
Yeah, if you've got them mounted in the ceiling, then set them up as your. Yeah, I don't see a I guess the only reason. All right, so here's the interesting thing. In the Denon AVR, if you set it as top height, then you don't get the option of Auro 3D if you're wanting that. So the only way to really get that to trigger is you have to basically tell it you've got height speakers. Then it'll let you select Auro 3D. So that's a big thing. How does that affect how it's calibrating? That part I don't know.
Well, you need to use the selection that is appropriate for the placement of the speaker in the room.
I would agree, but there are definitely some people that have said, "Hey, look, I want Auro 3D because I like that, and I stand by it."
That's a compromise.
I'm just saying. So, but yeah, so I've got mine set up as height, so because they're on my ceiling. I'm sorry, not height, but yeah,
top.
like top. Yeah, I think in there it basically calls them in ceiling. Even though mine are on ceiling, they're still above me. They're not heights on my wall. And there's
front heights and rear heights are typically mounted on the front and rear walls. Correct. Tops are mounted on the ceiling.
Correct. But
typically,
I think they call them top. Maybe they call them top ceiling. Front ceiling again. Man, I don't even remember. So yeah, but there's a visual.
Front and rear heights are made to increase the height of your front and rear sound stages and move objects up and down that area. The tops are meant to be overheads.
Okay, so Angelo says that Arundel has a waveguide to help. Would that help with maximum SPL? Maybe.
Not necessarily with like output, SPL output. That's more for like direction of audio or just.
They're saying waveguide makes all the difference. I'm not sure.
No, not for SPL. Not really. That's more for the dispersion plots, like to get to dispersion characters you want.
Okay. All right.
Jed says those Arundels are THX Ultra certified. If they can't hit 105 dB, then life is a lie. He says.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, here we go, right here. Cool, man.
They're 89 dB sensitive.
Yeah, they're definitely not super sensitive.
Which does a lot of the per listen stuff is not very sensitive, but it doesn't tell you like what their maximum power handling or anything is. So, up to 400 watts. Oh, that says the recommended amplifier. So their maximum power handling is going to be somewhere below that.
THX used to say in their specifications, the THX Ultra spec used to say the speakers had to be 92 dB or above to be THX Ultra certified, if I remember correctly. I might not be remembering correctly, but I thought that
what this puts you at. So let's say you're at 12 feet, which is pretty typical for people. So you have 89, you lose 6 dB for every.
It gets real squishy in there, man.
Doubling of
gains to figure.
I know. I'm just seeing if it's even close. So you lose 6 dB for every doubling of distance. So you'd have 2 meters, 4 meters. You lose 12 dB. So you'd be at 87, and then you'd go to 90 on 2 watts. Then you'd go to 93 on 4 watts, and then you'd go to.
So these are 92.
Sorry, 77 is where you'd start. So then you go to 80. 83, and then you go to 86 for 8, and then you go to 89 for 16, and then 92 for 32, and then
2 hours later.
4, and then 98 for 128, 101 for 256, 104 for 512. We're already past it. And that's at 1 meter. Well, that's at the main listening position. So maybe with room gain and stuff, you're close.
Depends on how close you are to as well.
I did it at 12 feet.
Oh, okay. I'm only probably 7 foot from mine. Not mine, but 7 foot from them when I get them set up. Be easier to do it in my room.
Bruce asked a question, and I tried to reply with a link, and it wouldn't let me link him. So let me just tell him. He asked what ceiling tiles I'm using. Certainty Theater Black F is the name of them. They're a commercial ceiling tile. And I put the link in the chat, but it just wipes it out because it's a link. So just Google it.
Ryan, you can do a link, right?
Yes.
See if you can throw that in chat. I put it in our private chat. I went to the YouTube thing and just dropped it in actual live chat.
I think Ryan can. I can.
It killed it.
But I thought I gave you permission to be able to do that. Yeah.
I did.
Okay. So weird. I have to see what kind of permission you've got on here. But I thought I gave you the same permission.
All right. Couple more questions and then we can call it.
All right. So, I mean, we're pretty much almost done.
This one. Simon, go ahead.
Simon, can anyone educate me on why AVR receiver has low watt output, like 100 watt per channel? I mean, the power supply in an AVR can only distribute so much power. So depending on how much, how big that power supply they implemented in that, on your budget ones, they're going to be a lot smaller. On the higher end ones, like $3,000, $4,000 AVRs, they're going to put a much bigger power supply, so it's going to deliver more power. That's the simplest answer. So think about this too. An AVR, inside that one chassis, they've got video processing, video switching. They've got your power supply. You've got your capacitors. All that stuff is kind of crammed into one chassis. So when you separate that, like if you're comparing this to a dedicated amplifier, that amplifier only has amplification in it. It only has power supply, capacitors, and those types of things. So they have the physical space to put larger amounts of wattage in that, if that makes sense. Any thoughts, fellas?
Yeah, the dirty little secret is he's probably not even at 100 watts.
Right.
No. Not even close.
Especially if you're running 5, 7, 9 channels, you're probably down to about 50 watts, maybe 40 watts, depending on the AVR. So you're right.
Some of them have a nanny mode that if you got all the speakers wired up and you're using 4 ohm, they'll drop it to like 20 watts. Onkyo has
all the power.
I love how Jake Cameron just keeps coming in here saying, like, let's talk more action. Show your speakers off. Let's hear it. You know,
I'm trying to figure out what he's even referencing.
He wants to hear our systems. Like, he wants us to shut up and just play some movie content or music content.
Got to feel that chest slam through YouTube.
Yeah. To get people excited. Dude, a podcast is not, this is for education. If you're wanting like a audio demo, go to Best Buy.
Fly to Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm being serious. It's like you're not going to get, and I get this question on my channel sometimes, like, oh man, I saw your home theater tour and I was so disappointed because you didn't play the system. So let's think this through for a second. You want me to record a 7.2.4 Dolby Atmos system on a mono lapel microphone so that you can watch it and listen to it on your cell phone so that you can get an idea of how it sounds? Yeah. So, I don't know, just my thoughts. So hopefully you get excited for more than just an audio demo on YouTube. There you go. See, Bruce, man, we help people fall asleep. This is great. All right. Let's see. A couple more here real quick. Jonathan, do you happen to know an approximate release date for that Omnimic version 3? Did they say?
I do. They said September timeframe, so it should be this month if they hold true to what they said.
Awesome, man. That'd be super cool. All right. And last question of the night. Jay Travels, do you think front wides are worth it?
No.
Yeah. We already said yes. What's happening here?
Then we got to talk about Circuit Studio because he's asked this question 9 zillion times.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with that. What is that? HD Fury V.
It's an HDMI device that can do a bunch of different stuff like player LED or display LED.
Okay.
Dolby Vision, upscaling, and a bunch of other stuff.
No angry.
Depends on the situation. For the average Joe, no. For an enthusiast, possibly.
Okay.
Depends on what you're trying to do. There are times when it can make the image look a little bit better.
So Jay Cameron kind of, as a follow-up, he said he just thinks it might be helpful. Sorry about that. Some folks might enjoy it. And it's true. Some people might, and I think that's inspire folks maybe. So again, yeah, I've got mixed feelings about it. Sometimes I do audio demos. So part of that too is anytime that I use copyright material, such as a movie, such as any kind of music, unless it's royalty free, and a lot of royalty free, honestly, it doesn't sound that great anyway. It just doesn't sound good, and it's not going. And if it is copyright, then I run the potential risk of getting a copyright strike. If I get 3 copyright strikes in 6 months, they delete my entire channel.
Let's get them striked.
What's that?
Let's get you striked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm not willing to do that. I'm not jeopardizing my YouTube channel that I've worked 5 years to build, so that somebody can, listen to Ready Player One on their cell phone. It doesn't make sense to me. So, but that's just me. So, but like I said, there's plenty other channels that offer some of that. So I would just recommend kind of going to those. He wants a room tour. I mean, I've done plenty of those. I need to do an updated one because a lot has changed. But yeah.
So going back to the wides conversation, I put it in our private chat. Can you put it in the chat, Youthman?
Sure.
This playlist that I just shared is a playlist that's got a lot of front wide content on various songs that I've run across. So if you listen to this, see how it sounds, and then realize there's a lot of dedicated content. If you had front wides, that comes directly from your front wides. Yeah. So you can kind of piece that together in your mind, perhaps, as you play through that.
Appreciate it, Jay Cameron. Yeah, there's probably about 50 room tours that I've done on the channel, maybe more. So if you like those, there's definitely several playlists that have the room tours. They just don't have a lot of audio demo. So Ike says it does LLDV, but that's the only one of many things it can do at Circuit Studio.
That's low latency Dolby Vision. That's a form of tone mapping.
Okay.
And you can do that on a $50 HDMI switch if you get the right one. There's threads on AVS form on that, so you don't have to spend that much if that's your draw. Mm-hmm. The purpose of that, and there's been a lot of talk on that for the Epson 12,000 that I have. The purpose of that is to lower your incoming nits from your HDR content. So if your movie's mastered 1,000 nits, but your projector can only do 200, 150, whatever it is, 100 in some cases, it's gotta compress all that dynamic highlight information into a much smaller container. Mm-hmm. What Dolby Vision does is it's got a professional pre-mastered setting. Like they master the content in different levels, and if you can trick your source device into thinking that your display device is Dolby Vision, you can choose what Dolby Vision you want. So for projector, you might choose 300, for instance, and now your projector is getting a source content instead of 1,000 nit content. It gets 300 nit content, and it can use its own internal algorithms to better meet that compression. Ryan probably has more to add on that, but I think in general, people say it's very favorable. I think a lot of people use the room on that. Just the Dolby Vision kind of, if you can trick your display device, like we talked about earlier, very few projectors have Dolby Vision. Mm-hmm. Dolby Vision is a mastering format where they're helping it be mastered for the different various nit contents, like a 300, mm-hmm. a 600, a 900, a 1200, whatever type tier. Mm-hmm. You can, since we don't have Dolby Vision, we can't say, hey, I'm only a 300 nit device. But if you have Dolby Vision, or if you trick your source device into thinking you have Dolby Vision, which is what that room device does, you can trick it and say, I only have a 300 nit device. Now, it's for all practical purposes, your projector is Dolby Vision because the source device thinks it is, and that's the content it's sending, the mastered content it's sending. That's the way I understand it.
Potentially. So Dolby Vision can be rather confusing. It depends on if the trim pass was made for that particular mastering level. So if there wasn't a pass made for X luminance, then it can be wrong. So it just depends on what was actually done. and what type of Dolby Vision you're actually doing and what was actually made. So a lot of the Dolby Vision content that's on Netflix is hot garbage in comparison to even what it was with HDR. I think a big part of Dolby Vision, and this is me personally, is a big marketing ploy. There is really good Dolby Vision content, don't get me wrong, but there is also a lot of really bad Dolby Vision content. And it all depends on how it was done and how it was mastered and what trim passes and all kinds of other stuff that was included in this. So I'll just say it depends. It can be better and it can be worse.
Ike says it wraps the DV metadata. HDR10 wrapper. It's over my head, man. All right. Did we hit all of them? Yeah, I think we hit all of them for the most part. So one last thought here. There was one that said they're finally getting. There we go. Nicholas, finally getting Dolby Vision theaters opening up in Australia. Very cool, man. So are you talking Dolby Vision theaters or Dolby Cinema? Well, maybe I guess it is Dolby Vision. We've got Dolby Cinemas here, which is the audio format. And kind of like how they set it up. No, Jay Cameron, I didn't take that as trolling at all, brother. Definitely no offense. So, no, it's a legitimate. I get that question a lot. Like, why don't I do audio demos? And there's just a lot of, I don't know, there's several reasons why I don't do it. I don't see a true value in them most of the time because what I'm hearing in my theater room is not going to be what you're hearing on your end. Most people, I mean, I can look at analytics. Probably half of my audience are using a mobile device to watch my videos. So now I've got half the people listening on these crappy speakers. So it doesn't make sense. And then you got the whole copyright as well. So, okay, it says AMC Dolby Cinema here also has Dolby Vision. Screen goes halfway up to the sidewalls. Dolby Cinema is both Dolby Vision and Atmos. Okay. Super cool, man. Oh, awesome, man. Yeah. Bruce says, Mikey says there's no YouTube content with Atmos. Yeah. Not yet. So, well, cool, man. Hope you guys had a good week. Ryan, you're off to Cedia tomorrow? No, when do you go?
Tomorrow.
What time do you fly out?
Not until the evening. I leave at like 5.
So I leave super early on Wednesday. So I'll be on a flight. I'll be there Wednesday night. Myself and a gentleman that's going with me, we're going to a dinner with Samsung. So, and then we'll hit the ground running on Thursday morning. Be there all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday. Jump on a flight early Sunday morning. So if you're coming to Cedia, definitely if you see me, say hi. If you see Ryan, say hi. Jonathan won't be there. He'll be watching from afar.
I've never been to Cedia. You guys have to tell me more about it.
It's
huge,
crazy.
Man. It's pretty huge. It's kind of overwhelming, you know. So there are other shows that are even bigger than that. I mean, you go over
ISE, baby.
That's the big one.
It's like double, if not more.
Yep.
Cedia probably has 70,000 people. ISE's 150.
That's nuts.
It's big.
That's a lot of people.
It's big.
They say it's like the show.
I mean, it's the floor space by itself is probably 3 to 4 times larger than Cedia.
And that's in Barcelona, Spain?
It'll be in Barcelona again next year.
That's wild. I don't know. That might be cool to take Jessica.
It's pretty cool.
Jessica, you want to go to Spain?
It's pretty cool.
To speakers. There's only 150,000 people that's going to be in there. She'll be like, no, dude. Now you and me, we can go to Spain. But
she call you dude? Nah, dude.
She would say something. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, fellas. Well, let's wrap it up here. Hope y'all have an incredible week, man. Got more content coming from you. All right. How does all this workload take its toll on your relationship? Talking about my wife or with these fellas?
We all hate each other, obviously.
We're going 2.5 hours strong here. We're still doing good.
I think we all have very tolerant spouses.
Yeah, dude. I mean, my wife gets it. She's like, she's incredibly supportive. She was the one that said, "Hey, you need to have a dedicated theater room." And I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, so I don't have to look at your crap. Just go put it in that room, shut the door, and I'll never have to see it." That was the logic. Didn't work, but yeah, my wife. Like I said, I mean, the cool thing is, so there are some pressures, but then there's other things that's really great. Like if my daughter says, "Hey, Dad, I need you to come to school," I can drop what I'm doing and go to school. If I need to go do something or help Jessica or show up at her classroom to bring her something, I have that flexibility. So there's definitely a lot of benefits. So my schedule is super flexible. There's a lot of benefits to this. Now the hard thing might be just me traveling a lot lately, but that's really only 2-3 months out of the year, and it just happens to kind of be back to back to back. We got M-Wave, Audio Advice Live. I went to Scott Newby's event. Then I went to Atlanta Home Theater's event, and then now I'm going to Cedia. So 5 events in, what's that, 3 months time frame? So maybe that gets a little tough. But other than that, man, I love it. And I even shared a video today. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. I'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah. Yeah. Ryan's wife, she's pretty tolerant because he brought a ton of stuff from M-Wave and put it in his own garage.
There are times when she gets mad, which I can't fault her for because it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. She tolerates a lot. She's a trooper.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate her.
When at first it was really hard because I'd be bringing more speakers in. She's like, "Bro, what are you doing?" She didn't say bro, but she's like, "What are you doing?"
Dude, bro, what's up, bro?
She's
what
like,
you do, bro? Bring speakers in here, bro.
Yeah, I got to get these reviewed. And she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And the first thing she would say is like, "When are these getting out of the living room?" As soon as I get the video done. So yeah. All right, we said we're gonna wrap it up, so let's wrap it up. Have a great week, guys. I'll be at Cedia all this week. Ryan will be too. I'll be back sometime Sunday night, so we still should be able to. Ryan might be sleeping, but I should be good to go for Sunday night. So we'll see you then. Bro, take off your pants. I don't know who you're talking.
That's a little weird.
Yeah.
So I'll add one more.